All right. This is going to be part two of modern Indian history. Uh, the complete modern Indian history. We unfortunately could not cover it in the part one. So this is going to be the second half of the modern Indian history. And correct. In the last video, we've seen about the advent of Europeans and then the British conquest of India. And that was followed by the British policies in India. And also we saw some of the revolts like 1815 revolt, and we also saw the peasant revolts, caste revolts, and tribal revolts. And this video is going to be about the social religious reform movement, and this will be followed by the Indian national movement. And so let's get started. So let's begin the socio-religious reform movement, and this has we begin with some basic background, and then we get into the real reformers that are involved in this moment. What are the main factors if we see? One is the social evils. During this period, that is 19th century, regions of Bengal and Maharashtra were actually the first to get enlightened that there are some social evils that are present in our society, like there's suppression of women, seclusion of women, there's child marriage and untouchability, and all that. All such social evils were prevalent in our society at that time. And there's also second factor is like there's a lot of religious beliefs that were interlaced with a lot of superstitions. And third factor is Western educations. This is the time that we were exposed to a lot of Western ideas and Western education that for some reason was being introduced by British for their own benefit, but also we were exposed to the ideas of press and everything. So this is also one of the important factors that all the reformers at that moment, they also had an access to their own printing press. So each of them had their own journal, which essentially acted as a newspaper, but not exactly as a newspaper. So these are the factors that contributed to the socio-religious reform movement. Second, now let's get into the reformers that are involved in this. First, we have Raja Ram Mohan Roy. He's also known as the father of reform movement in India because he was essentially the first reformer, and he has established, as we all know, Brahma Samaj. Brahma Samaj was started by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. One event that particularly plagued him is that he was born in a conservative Brahmin family, and the widow wife of his elder brother was burnt alive in front of him. So that is when he had taken a resolution to fight against this social evil called Sati. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy, in the year 1815, he started Atmiya Sabha. In the year 1828, it was renamed to Brahmo Sabha, and then later it was further renamed to Brahmo Samaj in the year 1829. So the main purpose of this Brahmo Samaj is to purify Hinduism and also to preach monotheism. And he focused on sati. He fought against the social evil of sati and also caste discrimination. And due to his efforts, due to Raja Ram Mohan Roy's efforts, the British government in 1829 it had declared sati as a crime. Especially if you remember, the Governor General at this point of time was Lord William Bentinck. Secondly, he was also emphasized. He mainly fought for the women freedom, and he also condemned idolatry and other such religious or superstitious beliefs that are interlaced with religion, such as taboo on sea voyages, which means we should not go outside of India, of the land main subcontinent of India. That is one of the religious beliefs that we have. So taboo on sea voyages, and also polytheism. So he basically condemned idolatry and polytheism, and also taboo on sea voyages. There's an additional point that was asked in one of the previous presents, I think in 2021, was that he had established Calcutta Unitarian Committee. In 1823, Calcutta Unitarian Committee was established by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. This was actually meant to bring all the Brahmin supporter friends for the cause of monotheism. And this also involves some eminent people like Dwaraknath Tagore. And so this is one of the points that we have to keep in mind. 1823, Calcutta Unitarian Committee. Another point about Raja Ram Mohan Roy is he had denied ultimate authority of scriptures. He did not endorse the scriptures that were there in our Hindu fold, but he was silent on transmigration theory, which means he neither supported nor condemned, denied the authority of transmigration theory, which means the body taking another body upon death, the soul being transmigrated after death. So he was silent on this issue. This is important because sometimes we get asked these questions in uh, some choices in the MCQs, right? Now let's get on. Let's see the journals that were published by Rajaram Mohan Rai. First thing is Samvad Kaumudi. It is the first paper of Rajaram Mohan Rai that was published in the year 1819, and it is in Bengali language. But if at all they ask which is the first paper that was found in India, it is not Samvad Kaumudi. Just for information, it is Bengal Gazette. It is published by J. A. Hickey in the year 1780. Then we have Mirat ul Akbar. Mirat ul Akbar, again of Rajaram Mohan Rai. It is a Persian weekly. It is one of the first, and it is the first Persian weekly in India. Then we also have Banga Duga, which actually came in many languages. Rajaram Mohan Roy's contribution to Western education. In 1817, he established Calcutta Hindu College with the help of, it was established by a Dutch missionary named David Harry with the help of Rajaram Mohan Roy. So he essentially helped them establish. But later in the year 1825, he himself founded the Vedanta College in Calcutta. So there were two colleges. One is Calcutta Hindu College, which he did not establish. He helped Mr. David Harry to establish in the year 1817. And later on in the year 1825, he founded a Vedanta College in Calcutta. Now, talking about the literary works, he translated many Upanishads into English and Bengali. He wrote a book called Tawfat al-Mujahideen, and it is also translated as Gift of Monotheist. This was originally written in Persian, and he was influenced a lot by the Quran and Bible. In fact, he wrote a book called Percepts of Jesus in English. He later died. Rajaram Mohan Rai died in Bristol City in 1833. After his death, the Brahmo Samaj went into the hands of several splits. In fact, it was first taken up, the leadership of Brahmo Samaj was first taken up by Devendranath Tagore, who happens to be the father of Rabindranath Tagore. He has actually, Devendranath Tagore has actually established something called Tattva Bodhini Sabha in the year 1839. This was merged with Brahmo Samaj in the year 1842. And later on, this is actually called as Brahmo Samaj, Adi Brahmo Samaj. So what we have essentially as Brahmo Samaj, when it was merged with Devendranath Tagore's Tattva Bodhini Sabha, it was known as Adi Brahmo Samaj. And later on, in the year 1866, that is when the first split happened. There emerged a personality called Keshav Chandra Sen, and he found a second group, which is essentially a split from this Adi Brahmo Samaj, and he called it Brahmo Samaj of India. Right. Later on, in the year 1878, another split happened. This is in the year 1878, yes, and they called it as Sadharana Brahmo Samaj. And the people that were associated with Sadharana Brahmo Samaj are Anand Mohan Bose, Umesh Chandra Datta, and Shivanath Shastri. The main reason for this second split is because Keshav Chandra Sen himself was performing child marriage, although he was preaching about all these progressive ideas under the garb of Brahmo Samaj, but he himself was performing child marriage, in fact, with his own minor daughter and the Maharaja of Koch Bihar, the son of Maharaja of Koch Bihar. So this actually led all his followers to get into the second split, that is Sadharana Brahmo Samaj, that is in 1878. Here we have to learn about two other things. One is in the year 1843, Tattva Bodhini Patrika was started by Akshay Kumar Dutt, which actually cited a medical opinion against the child marriage, and it also advanced the ideas such as very progressive ideas like courtship before marriage, partnership equality, and divorce by law and custom. So this is all we have to know about Brahmo Samaj. Now let's get into Arya Samaj. Arya Samaj, this organization was founded in the year 1878 by Gujarati Brahmin called Moola Shankara. He's also popularly known as Dayananda Saraswati. Ideas of Arya Samaj are like it primarily targeted untouchability, and he wanted to abolish all castes, and he wanted to revive the original Chatur Varna, which means the four castes, which is not based on the birth, but based on the merit that one accumulates during his lifetime. So it is very utopian form of caste system, uh, and therefore it was not very popular. He was not, you know, successful in convincing people about it. But he, to talk about Dayanand Saraswati and his form of social reform, he condemned idolatry, just like how Raja Ram Mohan Roy, through his Brahmo Samaj, condemned idolatry. Here also we see that Dayanand Saraswati, through Arya Samaj, condemned idolatry and also polytheism. So he said there is no evidence of polytheism in Puranas. He also said, most famously, he said, go back to Vedas. That is, Vedas are the only source of Hindu religion, and that he also mentioned about all these social evils that are generally practiced in the 18th century, that there's 19th century, that there is no mention of that in the Vedas. And there are three S that he focused on. One is Swadharma, second is Swabhasha, and Swarajya. Swadharma is do not abandon your religion. Swabhasha is do not get attached to your do not get attached to English or the Western language. Be only devoted to your own mother tongue. And Swarajya is do not accept any foreign rule. You be your own leader. And then finally, in the year 1882, he started two movements. One is cow protection movement, and the second is Shuddhi movement. Cow protection movement is like every religion. They had their own custom practices and their own food habits and everything. But what is ideal for us? He believed his animal sacrifice is not meant for the food of the common man, and therefore he found this issue. He raised this movement called cow production movement. Secondly, this Shuddhi movement is basically reconversion program. It is more like a Ghar Vapsi program. All the Hindus who were converted into Christianity during that time, this is a mechanism for them, an opportunity for them to revert back to their Hindu roots. Then let's talk about the books that are written by Dayananda Saraswati. One is Satyartha Prakashika, which is in Hindi language. It's about the future of a casteless India. Then there is Veda Bhasha. It's a commentary on Rigveda and Yajur Veda. It is written in the Sanskrit language. And finally, we have Veda Bhashya Bhumika. It is written both in Hindi and in Sanskrit language. And we also see that there is a second split. There's a split that is happening. I'm sorry, it's not a second split. There's just a single split that is happening in Arya Samaj. But if you see the Brahmo Samaj, there is two different splits, right? That's one point that we need to remember. In the year 1892, Arya Samaj was divided into two groups. One is Gurukul group of Arya Samaj, which was led by Swami Shraddhananda. And then there is college group of Arya Samaj, which is led by Lala Hansraj. Shraddhananda had taken the conservative route. So he said he propagated that Vedas are to be taught and Haridwar be the headquarters of the Gurukul group of Arya Samaj. And later on, he published a book called The Hindu Sangathan. And he also emphasized that untouchability is a blot on Hinduism. He was later assassinated by Abdul Rashid. Talking about the college group, that is the other group of Arya Samaj, we have these ideals are radical and they wanted Western and modern education. So they wanted to establish more of a Western form of education, and that's how they came up with the concept of DAV colleges, DAV, Dayanand Anglo Vedic colleges all over the country. But first was in Lahore. With that, we finish Arya Samaj. Now let's move on to the Theosophical Society. Theosophical Society, in the year 1875 in New York City, it was formed by two foreigners. One is Henry Steele Occult. He's an American. And secondly, there's a Russian woman called Helena P. Blavatsky. So it is meant to promote the education and ancient cultures and ancient civilizations, but it's mainly based on studies in occultism. The pseudo black magic and superstitious beliefs. It is based on that, but it is more of a churning of the information or the knowledge that is stored in ancient civilizations and cultures, right? Later on, although it was formed in New York in 1875, it was later shifted to India. In specific, it was shifted to Chennai, and in Adyar. There's a place called Adyar. That's where it was shifted to in the year 1878, and that's where Mr. Henry Accord had permanently settled, and he became the president of the organization. And after his death, there's a prominent British lady, that is Annie Besant, who became the president after that in the year 1907. And she was also influenced by this secret doctrine by Madame Blavatsky. And she had founded two journals. Now we are talking about Annie Besant. She founded two journals, that is Commonweal and New India. Speaking more about Annie Besant, she in the year 1898 she founded a college called the Central Hindu College. In 1916, it was later converted into Benares Hindu University, which also was co-founded by Madan Mohan Malviya. Now let's talk a little about Madan Mohan Malviya because we came across him. He founded an organization called Hindu Mahasabha. Hindu Mahasabha, uh, and also he was involved in a lot of press work, publishing work, journaling work, like Hindustan. He was an editor at the Hindustan in the year 1887. Later, he also uh, worked at the Indian Opinion. He published the Indian Opinion. He also published a Hindi weekly called the Abhyudaya. He published in Allahabad the Leader in 1909. He also published a Hindi paper called Maryada. Later on, he saved the Hindustan Times from bankruptcy in the year 1924. And then later, 1933, he uh, he wrote a paper called Sanatan Dharma. So all these papers, I just wanted to read the names again: Hindustan, Abhyudaya, Indian Opinion, The Leader, Maryada, Sanatan Dharma. Let's go again: Hindustan, Abhyudaya, Indian Opinion, The Leader, Maryada, and Sanatan Dharma. All these are related to Madan Mohan Malviya, and he also recently got Bharat Ratna. Um, let's talk about Annie Besant. We also know that Annie Besant has started BT College, Besant Theosophical College. It was founded in Madanapalli near the Chittor district of Andhra in the year 1915 and 16. One more thing that we have to add a little about Madan Mohan Malviya is he founded Bharat Scouts and Guides, which in which he wrote. This was actually meant to provide social service, the mindset of social service among the young generation at that time. And he also used to write poetry in the Harishchandra Chandrika magazine with the pen name Makarand. So Makarand goes for Madan Mohan Malviya. So triple M and M, Makarand. So he was also the president for Indian National Congress 4 times. And in Surat session, separate electorate was granted at 1907, right? So that session was very important. And he also took part in the second roundtable conference. Madan Mohan Malviya took part in second roundtable conference, and he also started Ganga Mahasabha. Ganga Mahasabha against the dam construction. This was taken up by Madan Mohan Malviya. With that, we finish the Theosophical Society. Now let's go on to the fourth social reform movement, that is Ramakrishna movement. It was started by Swami Vivekananda. So here we have to be careful. It is not Ramakrishna Paramhamsa himself. It is by Swami Vivekananda, named after his guru Swami Ramakrishna Paramhamsa. So talking about Swami Vivekananda, his original name is Narendra Datta, and originally was his guru, that is Ramakrishna Paramhamsa, is Gangadhar Chattopadhyay. I'm sorry, Gangadhar Chattopadhyay. So the basic theme of Ramakrishna movement was service to man is service to God, and in 1896 to 1897, Swami Vivekananda has founded two organizations. One is Ramakrishna Mutt, another is Ramakrishna Mission. Ramakrishna Mutt is basically meant to deal with all the spiritual affairs that will propagate the philosophy of Vedanta. And then we have Ramakrishna Mission, which is basically a charitable institutions which also works for providing social services, educational services, etc. The headquarters of Ramakrishna Mission is in Belur in Karnataka. Sorry, in Calcutta. And I believe you have to join the mission. Okay, that's a different issue altogether. In journals, speaking about the journals of Swami Vivekananda, you have Prabhuda Bharata in English and Udbodhana in Bengali. Udbodhana in Bengali and Prabhuda Bharata in English. We have to remember a very important gathering with regards to Swami Vivekananda. In 1893, there's an international conference of that was happening with a congregation of all the representatives of different religions. That is Parliament of Religions, that took place in the year 1893. It marks like the 400 years of founding of America, which happened in 1492 by Columbus, and that is where Swami Vivekananda took part in order to raise the identity and issues of India, and also to represent the Hinduism in that platform. That is where he raised this concept called in fact, articulated this concept called Kupastha Manduka or Kupa Manduka, as they say in some languages. It is nothing but frog in a well concept. We all live in our imaginary wells, and we think whatever knowledge we know is like the complete knowledge, and that is the sea unto itself. A frog in a well believes whatever knowledge it has is the is all in it. Like there is nothing beyond that for it to acquire or anything. But in essence, it is just in its own well, and there is a vast sea that is still awaiting for its understanding. So this is what Swami Vivekananda has brought in the Parliament of Religions, and that was a very huge success for him to bring the attention of all the countries towards India. And later on, he also got associated with an Irish follower over there called Margaret Noble, and he later calls him as Sister Nivedita. That is all about Swami Vivekananda and Ramakrishna Mission and Ramakrishna Mutt, all the Ramakrishna movement in general. Next, we go on to some smaller, not smaller in the sense, some other reformers we see that are involved in the social religious reform movement, like Henry Vivian de Rosio. So he's an Anglo-Indian poet. In fact, he's the first nationalist or the second modern poet, and we also see that he's a lecturer in the Hindu College of Calcutta, and he started the movement called Young Bengal Movement. He gave radical lectures in college to all the students, and he started motivating them in order to take part in this Young Bengal movement. But later he was dismissed from the college because of all his radical preachings. He wrote journals like Hesperus and Bengal Spectator. Surendranath Banerjee described Derosians as the pioneers of modern civilization of Bengal. Next, we speak about Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, who lived between the times of 1820 to 1891. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar is very huge scholar. Like he was very much into education and also women upliftment. So he reconstructed the Bengali alphabet into 12 vowels and 40 consonants. He's also Sanskrit professor, and he opened it to non-Brahmins as well. So he worked mainly in two fields. One is women education, and second is women remarriages. For women education, he opened at least 35 schools, and he opened a college called Bentun College, which is the first college in India, and the first female graduate here out of Bentun College is Kadambini Ganguly. Then in the arena of widow remarriages, so he put a sufficient pressure on the efforts of Widow Remarriages Act that is brought out by Dalhousie in the year 1856. So with the efforts of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar and Dandu Keshav Karve, D.K. Karve and Keshav Chandra Sen, that's how the Widow Remarriages Act materialized in the year 1856. Now let's talk about D.K. Karve. Dandu Keshav Karve, his autobiography is called Looking Back. And in the year 1916, he founded the first women university called SNDT University, Srimati Nathibai Damodar Thakurse University. He also founded the first Widow Home Association in Bombay, along with M.G. Ranade, Mahadev Govind Ranade. And he himself married a widow. So he's not just a preacher, he's also a practitioner. Then he also founded Ananda Balika Ashram, which is meant for the education of women. And that's all we have to know about D.K. Karve. Now let's go to Gopal Hardeshmukh. He's a judge under the British and also a social reformer. He famously said that if religion is not allowing social reform, then change the religion. He's also popularly known as Lokahitwadi, and he started a Marathi journal. And the name of the journal is same as his name, that is Hitechu. He also founded an organization called Vitantu Punar Vivaha Mandali, and he found periodicals like Gyan Prakash, Indu Prakash, and Lok Hitavadi. So he was a Brahmin, although, but he attacked the Brahmin monopoly in terms of religious matters, and he earned the title of Rab Bahadur from the British. Next, we go on to deal with uh, go on to learn about Mahadev Govind Ranade and also his associates. Justice Mahadev Govind Ranade, he was a judge in the High Court of Bombay, and he founded Pune Purna Sarvajanik Sabha, Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, in the year 1867. 1867, he founded Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, which is basically a bridge between the government and people. And he was also a member of Pradhana Samaj, which spreads the liberal ideals and social reform ideas. Um, it was founded in the year 1867. Now we are talking about Pradhana Samaj, which is also founded in the year 1867 in Bombay by Mr. Atmaram Panduranga. At this point, we should also remember there is something called Paramahamsa Sabha, which is started by Databa Panduranga. It has nothing to do with Mahadev Govind Ranade, but it's just a standalone topic that we need to remember. Paramahamsa Sabha by Databa Panduranga. Pradhana Samaj, of which Mahadev Govind Ranade was a member, was formed in the year 1867. That is the same year as founding of Pune Sarvajanik Sabha. 1867, it was founded in Bombay by Atmaram Panduranga. Right? Just to give a clear cut understanding of the three things. One, Mahadev Govind Ranade founded Pune Sarvajanik Sabha in the year 1867. Atmaram Panduranga founded Pradhana Samaj in the year 1867. And finally, we have Paramahamsa Sabha, which is founded by Dadaba Panduranga. Again, going back to Mahadev Govind Ranade, in the year 1887, he founded Indian National Social Conference. And there are three associates with Mahadev Govind Ranade. One is Ramabhai Ranade, who founded two organizations, that is Pune Seva Sadan and Sharada Sadan, which is for widows. Ramabhai Ranade, she also started in 1889 Mukti Mission, and she wrote about upper class women and the miserable lives of women of upper class, and also she was a very good Sanskrit scholar. This is an important point that we have to remember. Then let's talk about Gopal Ganesh Agarkar, who is also another associate of Mahadev Govind Ranade. Gopal Ganesh Agarkar, in 1884, he founded the Deccan Educational Society, and he also founded the New English School, or the Ferguson College. He also edited the journals Tilak's Kesari. Tilak, who started Kesari, which is a Marathi journal, that was edited by Gopal Ganesh Agarkar. And he himself started Sudharak on untouchability and caste system. We should also remember there is another Sudharak which was started by Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who was mentor of Mahatma Gandhi. Then we speak about another associate of Mahadev Govind Ranade, who is Raghunath Rao, who is associated with the Pludge movement, which was meant as a reform, as a movement against the child marriages. Now let's speak about Behramji M. Malabari. Behramji M. Malabari, he belongs to Parsi community. He acquired and edited the Indian Spectator. He was vice chancellor of Bombay University. In 1885, he founded Seva Sadan. Remember, it's not Pune Seva Sadan. We read that Pune Seva Sadan is started by Ramabai Ranade. The Seva Sadan is by Behramji M. Malabari. And then we also see that under Behramji M. Malabari's pressure, British government had passed the 1891 Age of Consent Act. This is the very same Age of Consent Act which was opposed later by an extremist Balagangadhar Tilak, which is R. Tilak, right? So what does this act do? Age of Consent Act reduces it increases the age of girls, marriageable age of girls, to 12 years, and for boys it is fixed at 18 years, right? It was again subsequently increased through various acts like Sharada Act, and then post-independent it was also increased further. But the Age of Consent Act, with the pressure of Behramji M. Malabari, is what we have to remember. We also read about Seva Sadan, which was started by Behramji M. Malabari. What it does, it takes care of all the women that were exploited and discarded by the society, who belonged to different castes, and they provided them education, medical care, and all the welfare services. Now let's go to another important personality and his associates, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, the very spiritual guru of, not spiritual guru, sort of a guru of Mahatma Gandhi, whom he revered a lot. He founded an association called Servants of India Society in the year 1905. It is aloof. Its activities are aloof from Indian National Congress, and its aim was to train the Indian national missionaries. The concept of this Servants of India Society also had a journal, or more importantly, Gopal Krishna Gokhale had this journal called Hitavadi, which published the views of the society. In the year 1911, it was started, and there were three important members of this Servants of India Society. They are N.M. Joshi, H.N. Kunjru, and Sriram Bajpai. Let's learn a little more about each of them, beginning with N.M. Joshi. N.M. Joshi, he founded the Social Service League. It is meant to improve the conditions of the masses. And then later on in the year 1920, and this very important point, that in the year 1920 in Bombay, he founded the All India Trade Union Congress, AITUC. So this All India Trade Union Congress has boycotted the Simon Commission, and the first president of All India Trade Union Congress is going to be Lala Lajpat Rai. Right. Later on, we see that even today it is active. All India Trade Union Congress is active in the form of NTUC, National Trade Union Congress. Now let's go to H.N. Kunjru. Hridaynath Kunjru, in the year 1914, he founded Seva Samiti at Allahabad. So this is Seva Samiti. And then we have another important social reformer who is associated with Servants of India Society, that is Sriram Bajpai. Sriram Bajpai has founded Boy Scout Association in the year 1914. And it is like Scout movement is like it's an international movement that was taking place under Baden-Powell in England. So the purpose of this Scouts was like to introduce the concept of social service in young minds. And the Seva Samiti Scout Association, which was also, we just spoke about H.N. Kunjru, he started Seva Samiti, right? That's also a Scout Association, which was started by H.N. Kunjru, Sriram Bajpai, and Madan Mohan Malviya. We also read about Madan Mohan Malviya starting a Scouts Association, that is Bharat Scouts and Guides. Now let's move on to the next reformer, that is Kandukuri Veerasalingam. He is a social reformer from Andhra, and he started Hitakarani Samajam. It's a Telugu journal, and he started the Hitakarani Samajam, which is an association, and a journal that is associated with it is Viveka Vardhini. He was a conservative person from a Brahminical family, but he threw away his sacred thread, and he was into the social reform. There's another reformer which we have to remember at this point is Vishnu Shastri Pandit. He established the Widow Remarriage Association. So Widow Remarriage Association by Vishnu Shastri Pandit. Then finally we come across another person, social reformer, that is Shiv Dayal Khatri. Shiv Dayal Khatri is the successor of Jaimal. He was initially a banker, then he was into the social reform. Guru Nanak also belonged to Khatri caste, and he founded the Radha Swami Satsang in Angra, and now it is also founded in Telangana and Andhra. And the ultimate goal of this Radha Swami Satsang is to fight for the change. Now let's speak about some counter-reform movement that were there during this Hindu social reform that was taking place in the Hindu fold. Counter-reform movement is those movements that were started as opposed to the social reform movement, like that of Dharma Sabha. Dharma Sabha, it was founded in the year 1830 by Radha Khan Dev. Dharma Sabha, Radha Khan Dev. So it was fighting against Brahmo Samaj, which was started by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Dharma Sabha was started in 1829, and it supports Sati, like how Arya Samaj, Brahmo Samaj opposes Sati, Dharma Sabha supports Sati. And another counter-reform movement here is Bharat Dharma Mahamandala, which is founded in the year 1887 at Haridwar by Punjabi Brahmin. It is called Deen Dayal, who is called Deen Dayal Sharma. And we should also remember that Madan Mohan Malviya, who is also a social reformer, he's actually a part of this Bharat Dharma Mahamandala, which is actually counter-reform. So at the same time, Madan Mohan Malviya acted as a social reformer, also as a counter-social reformer. This Bharat Dharma Mahamandala was fighting against Arya Samaj, that is, which was established in the year 1875. Next, let's go on to the Muslim reform movements. In the Muslim reform movements, what we have to focus mainly is the Aligarh movement and Deoband movement, but we also go through a little bit about Wahhabi reform movement. It does not belong to India. It's happening in the Wahhabi, Sayyid Wahhab who's a person who belongs to Saudi Arabia. Um, it was started in the year 1820 by Syed Ahmad Rai Bareilly in India later on. And there is a concept of holy war, which was being utilized for this cause of national movement. And it was suppressed. Nizams have suppressed this Wahhabism because in 1853 the Hyderabad leader for Wahhabism was Mubazir ud Dawla, who is the brother of Nizam Nazir ud Dawla. So this Wahhabism was suppressed later on by the Nizams. The second movement of Muslim reform movement is Aligarh movement. Aligarh movement was founded by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. He served under the British before the revolt of 1847. He wrote the causes of Indian revolt and to ensure that British won't implement anti-Muslim policies. He wrote a magazine called Tazib al-Akhlaq. Tazib al-Akhlaq was a magazine that was written by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, and he believed in Western education. In the year 1887, he started Mohammedan Anglo in Oriental College in Aligarh, which was later renamed as Aligarh Muslim University. He was very loyal to the British and actually was like more into anti-nationalist and pro-British nature because he believed that Muslims would be dominated by the upper caste Hindus. Therefore, he preferred to be a pro-British than to be a nationalist. Later in the year 1906, in December, Dhaka, or Deccan Political Party was, Dhaka, or political party was founded by a group of Nawabs after the death of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. This is basically Aga Khan III, who's the first president and the founder of Muslim League, and also Nawab Salimullah and Mohsin ul Mulk and Bakar ul Mulk. Now let's talk about the third movement, that is Deoband movement. Deoband is actually a town in Uttar Pradesh, and it exactly started against Aligarh movement that we just saw by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, and they want to promote how the Aligarh movement wanted to promote Western education. Deoband movement, which is exactly opposite, countering the Aligarh movement, is busy spreading the traditional Muslim education, which is also the madrasas. And in 1867, in Deoband, they found a madrasa called Darul Ulm by Muhammad Qasim and Rashid Ahmad Ganguly. And Darul Ulum, or at Deoband, is considered as second largest madrasa, which is promoting this Muslim education in the world. And one point we have to remember is Deobandis are considered as nationalists, and they were supported by the Congress. Next, we see another religion, that is Parsi reform movement. Parsis, actually, they come from the Zoroastrians of Iran. They settled as Parsis in India. They also Parsis are also right in Bombay. They formed a reform organization which is named as Rahnuma Mazdian Sabha, or the Religious Reform Association. Rahnuma Mazdian Sabha, also known as Religious Reform Association, and a lot of Parsis live in Mumbai. God of the Parsis is Ahura Mazda, and they're against orthodoxy. And this very Sabha, Rahman Mazdian Sabha, is against orthodoxy, and it believed in modernization of women and the social position of women, basically. Founders of this Rahman Mazdian Sabha were Naroji Feronji and S.S. Bengali. Naroji Feronji and S.S. Bengali. There were two Parsi intellectuals who started this movement that we just discussed, and we need to remember. Finally, we move on to the Sikh reform movement. There are four important movements that we'll see, or five. One is Nirankari movement, Namdari movement, Kuka movement, Akali movement, and Singh Sabha movement. Nirankari movement was started by Dayal Singh. It propagated the concept that God has no form, Nirankari, and it was started by Dayal Singh, as we saw. And people cannot worship idols because God essentially has no form, is what preached by Nirankari movement. Second, we have Namdari movement, which is like you have to spend all your valuable time in remembering the name of the God, and it is started by Ram Singh. You can remember Ram Nam, so you can remember like that. Namdhari is associated with Ram Singh. And finally, you have Kuka movement, which is started by Bhagat Jawahar Mal. It it is a fight against idolatry. Again, it's the same as Nirankari movement, God has no form. Kuka movement is against idolatry. Idolatry is Bhagat Jawahar, started by Bhagat Jawahar Mahal, and all these movements were in Punjab. They were started in Punjab, and it's like localized within Punjab. Then we also have Akali movement. Next, Akali movement in the year 1921. It's an offshoot of Singh Sabha movement. We'll take a small detour and we'll digress a little bit and understand what is Singh Sabha movement, and then we can come back to it. Singh Sabha movement is founded in 1873 in Amritsar. It has got two objectives. One is to make the modern education available for all the Sikhs, and then to counter the proselytizers, that is, all the other religions who are trying to convert the Sikhs, missionaries, Christian missionaries of the Brahma Samaj, Arya Samaj, and the Muslim Maulvis. And its activities include establishing the Khalsa schools throughout Punjab, and it rejected the principles against the Sikh doctrine, right? All the like basically countering all the principles that were against Sikh doctrine, it rejected them. Now let's get back to our Akali movement. Akali movement is started in 1921. It is against the Udasi Mahantas, or the priestly caste that were taking care of these uh, gurdwaras, basically. So after this moment, all the Mahantas, Gurdwara Mahantas, they were actually loyalists, or they enjoyed the government patronage, the British government, and therefore they got corrupt. So what happened in Akali movement is three important leaders like Thara Singh, Kartar Singh, and Baba Karat Singh. They were supported by Gandhi to lead this protest against the Mahantas, and the result of which was seen in the form of Gurdwara Act of 1922, in which SGPC was established, Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee, to manage the affairs of Gurudwara, and that has been the norm across the world. All the Gurudwaras are not now managed by Mahantas, but they are managed by the SGPC, Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee, Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee. So this is all about the social religious reform movements that we see. If we discuss a little more about the nature of the social religious reform movement, all these movements are moderate in nature. They're not very radical, and we call it as an Indian Renaissance that was happening, and they were mostly women centric. A lot of social ills or social superstitions that were associated with women were busted using various methods like the input of Western intellectual thinking, or the progressive ideas that were brought in by the various social reformers. So the merits, if we see, definitely there were lots of social legislations that were brought in place, like Sati Abolition Act of 1829, Widow Remarriage Act of 1856, Age of Consent Act of 1891, and with the corresponding help, like Raja Ram Roy was instrumental in bringing Sati Abolition Act of 1829. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar and Dhandu Keshav Karve, D.K. Karve, were instrumental in bringing the uh, Widow Remarriage Act of 1856 during the time of Dalhousie. Then we have Behramji M. Malabari, who was instrumental in bringing out the Age of Consent Act, which was opposed by Tilak. And so, therefore, there's a lot of social legislation that were coming during this period. That's one of the merit. Rationality and reason was being improved, and there's a promotion of Western education that is happening. Indian journalism flourished because Radha Mohan Roy started his first journal, that is Samvad Kamadi, and then it went on. Like Behramji M. Malabari started the Times of India. G. Subramania Iyer started the Hindu, and also promoted lots of nationalism. Like lots of nationalist leaders were born out of this social religious reform. But there were also some demerits that were associated by this. There's a rise of communalism, because Arya Samaj essentially has started something called cow protection movement, which created a lot of tension among the Hindus and Muslim community. The Wahhabis were more uh, influenced by this concept of the holy war or the jihad, and Kukas were fighting against the Wahhabis. There was a lot of communal tension that was happening in the wake of nationalism, and under the social religious reform ideas. And there's also a revival concept that was happening of all the ancient systems during this time. There's a pseudo scientific temper, although it was apparently appearing to be moving towards scientific. There's also a growth of pseudo scientific temper that was happening, because all the spiritual scriptures were being quoted, like the Holy Quran or the Adi Granth. And for example, Gopal Harideshmukh was also a prominent personality that was opposing all these pseudo scientific temper. And the final drawback we see about this social religious reform movement is its base is very small. It's got a very narrow social base and it's confined only to the urban areas and not gone beyond its boundaries. It did not touch the rural areas. And let's see the national movement. After national movement, we will have completed the modern Indian history. This was supposed to be a one single video, but since we could not finish this in the day before yesterday's session, we are doing it as a two-parter. All right, Indian national movement. We begin with 1885, and then we go on to read about moderates, extremists, and then revolutionary terrorism phase one, revolutionary terrorism phase two, and then how partition happened, Subhash Chandra Bose, INA trails, and the rise of left-wing extremism in India. So nationalism, 1885 to 1947. This is a period of nationalism in India, right? We begin with the story of Indian National Congress, which is also the Congress party that is happening right now. That it has become a sort of a joke right now, but still it's under its own reconstruction and revival and rejuvenation. Indian National Congress. It was founded in the year 1885 by A.O. Hume in Bombay. A.O. Hume is an ICS officer of the British. He's a former civil servant, and he founded this Indian National Congress. And there was not just him, there were some other Britishers who were involved and later worked as presidents like George Yule, Henry Cotton, William Vanderburn, and Alfred Webb. In fact, there's a book that was written recently, like The Rise and Growth of Congress in India by C.F. Andrews and Girija Mukherjee. C.F. Andrews is also known as Deen Bandhu. It is the title that was given by Gandhi. Now we also see some sessions, and before that, we learn a little about the background of the establishment or the formation of this Indian National Congress. The first president of Indian National Congress is not A.O. Hume himself. He was the founder, but the first president was W.C. Banerjee. He said the party will work for the aspirations of the Queen of England. Basically, they were playing a safe game. They don't want to pick a fight with the then Governor General, who was Dufferin. And in fact, they invited Dufferin. They invited Clinton, Lord Clinton, who was at that time the governor of Bombay. In the year 1885, there were 72 delegates that were invited for a tea party for this formation of to celebrate the occasion of the formation of Indian National Congress. And at that point, there was a hypothesis that was going around called safety valve hypothesis, that Congress Party was founded under the guidance of Dufferin, and that it is to serve only the interests of the British and not to find some sort of nationalism that is to bring about a moment for independence or the freedom struggle for India. No, this was the undercurrent that was running behind the formation, and that was also rightly pointed out by Lala Lajpat Rai. He actually called Indian National Congress as Dufferin's brainchild. So Lala Lajpat Rai has called Indian National Congress as Dufferin's brainchild. Of course, he later on went on to become the president of INC also several times. Then we see that several other have commented about this hypothesis, like Bipin Chandra is a historian. He said this concept was opposed by him. What are the other reasons that could have happened, because of this, because of which this Indian National Congress has materialized? One is the growing awareness. At that time, there's national awakening that is happening because some factors like de-Indianization of civil services, Indian civil services, like the people who are governing our country at that time, there were not many Indians, and that is not a good side for us. So we started revolting against this. We asked for having more of Indians who would represent us in the civil services. Then Ilbert Bill issues. So Ilbert Bill was introduced in order to have Indian judges conducting the trials of European men. So basically, Indians will be deciding the fate of European criminals, and that didn't materialize. So Ilbert Bill issue was also one of the reasons why that awareness was spread about how it is important for us to gain our own self-respect through this freedom struggle and national movement. And then we also have Indian Arms Act of 1878 by Lord Lytton. Lord Lytton is the most regressive and most, I think it is very much okay to say the most idiotic uh, governor general of all times, because he did lots of repressive measures like Indian Arms Act or Vernacular Press Act in order to suppress Indians in every form possible. So that's how we can remember. Lord Lytton is basically the most idiotic guy, and he was followed by Lord Ripon. Lord Ripon tried to undo the changes that undo the bad things that Lord Lytton had called upon. So Lord Lytton, bad guy. Lord Ripon, good guy. That's how you can remember. Lord Lytton is almost like Lord Voldemort of Harry Potter fans, if you can relate. And Lord Ripon, maybe some Denzel Washington, some good fatherly figure kind of a guy. He's also more into local governance and all that, but we'll get to that when we get to that. And now let's talk about pre-Congress associations. Uh, there were lots of other organizations that were happening at this time, like 1838, this Landholders Association, which was established by Dwaraknath Tagore, who happens to be the grandfather of Rabindranath Tagore, and he condemned this all these zamindars. There was a lot of zamindars that were participating in this 1857 revolt, and he actually scolded them. You shouldn't have gone against the British. So basically, this organization, Landholders Association, which was formed in 1838 by Devendranath Tagore, by Dwaraknath Tagore, is actually a pro-British organization. In fact, he apologized the Brits for the participation of zamindars in the 1857 revolt. Later on, the fate of Landholders Association is that it later on merged with British India Association, which is founded by Devendranath Tagore. It's not Dwaraknath Tagore. Devendranath Tagore, who happens to be the father of Rabindranath Tagore. And what a legacy! Devendranath Tagore he also has written a journal called the Indian Mirror. Indian Mirror, 1862, was written by Devendranath Tagore, and he's the same Devendranath Tagore that we have seen in the socio-religious reform movement. That is in the context of Brahmo Samaj. He has formed Tattva Bodhini Sabha. Tattva Bodhini Sabha was founded by Devendranath Tagore in the year 1839, which was later merged with Brahmo Samaj of 1842. And he has also founded this British India Association, in which the Landholders Association was merged. Now we also have another association called Madras Native Association, which is formed by Gajala Lakshmi Narschetti. Gajala Lakshmi Narschetti has founded the Madras Native Association in the year 1852. 1866, there is East India Association by Dadabhai Naoroji. And there is 1876, 10 years later, there is Indian Association of Calcutta, which is also called Indian National Association by Surendranath Banerjee and Anand Mohan Bose. And next, we have Bombay Presidency Association, which is founded in 1883, 2 years before a year before formation of Congress. That is Ferozshah Mehta, Badruddin Tyabji, and K.T. Talang. Then there's Madras Mahajan Sabha, which is founded by Subramania Iyer. Subramania Iyer is the same guy who's founded a Hindu newspaper, along with Rangaya Naidu, P. Anandacharyalu, Veera Raghvachari, Subbarao Pandit. And Subramania Iyer has also been instrumental. No, he also had a journal called Swadeshi Mitran. So the problem with all these pre-Congress associations were they were mostly pro-British. At least the first two, Landholders Association and British India Association. Now let's talk about this Congress Party. It used to have annual meetings in the month of December, and every year there was one new president. Unlike these times where we have like Sonia Gandhi for God knows how many years. Of course, there's now Kharge who's being the working president, but it's not like all these presidents are like for decades together working. Every year there's a new president. In fact, Gandhi used to at a point Subhash Chandra Bose, Gandhi, although he was there as a president just for 1 year, he used to take calls on who is to be the president. Like he used to ask people to get into the elections for the post of president. So this is how Indian national legacy of Indian Congress has to be was there in the past, but now it's reduced to a joke. Uh, Talking about the first session of Congress, which is in 1885, it happened in Bombay, like we already spoke. It happened at Gokuldas Tejpal Sanskrit College, and the General Secretary is A.O. Hume, who's also the founder, and the president is W.C. Banerjee. There were also other British men at this point in who attended the session, like Vanderburn and John Jardine. Second session from Bombay, go all the way clockwise to Calcutta. Second session in the year 1886, December. It happened. It was presided by Dadabhai Naoroji, who was the first Parsi president. And third session, 1887, come clockwise down to Madras. The president is Badruddin Tyabji. He's the first Muslim president. So we see the first president in the year, the first session was presided by W.C. Banerjee, a Hindu. Second session by Dadabhai Naoroji, Parsi. And third session, Madras session, was by a Muslim. Uh, right. Then we see the fourth session at Allahabad, which is presided by George Yule, the first foreign president. So there's a lot of diversity at that time. Uh, then we also have to remember, in case they ask who's the president at the time of independence, it's J.B. Kriplani. In 1893, there's Vanderburn and Kane Company, which had agitated for Indian reforms in the House of Commons. That's also another point we have to remember. So Indian national movement can be studied under three stages. One is moderates, second is extremists, and third is Gandhian phase. Moderates were the early nationalists, and they took part. They started from 1885 to 1905. This period, which is also called seed period, was taken up by the leadership was taken up by moderates. Their end goal was not to get independence or freedom for India. Their end goals were more like attainment of dominion status, and this was done through political begging. And their social base was mostly urban class, upper urban class, not even urban class, upper urban class. Then later on, we read about the extremists who took up this leadership of Indian national movement between 1905 till 1920. That is era of Gandhi. Till Gandhi arrived, the leadership was with extremists who were more like militants, and their methods were like passive resistance, and Swaraj was their mode of attainment or the means of attainment, and their end goal was Swaraj, that is self-rule. What was the social base? Did they include all the rural masses? No, they were limited to urban classes, right? And finally, we have Gandhian phase, that is 1820 to 1847. Here, the end goal was attainment of Sampurna Swaraj, or the complete independence, and the means that was taken up here is Satyagraha, and the social base is complete rural masses, right? Now let's get into the details of each phase. Let's begin with moderate phase, which is 1885 to 1905. We have to learn a few important leaders that were involved during this phase, like Dadabhai Naoroji, Ferozshah Mehta, Mahadev Govindranathe, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Surendranath Banerjee, Ras Bihari Ghosh. Let's go again. Dadabhai Naoroji, Ferozshah Mehta, Mahadev Govindranathe, Surendranath Banerjee, and Ras Bihari Ghosh. What were the end goals of moderates? Dominion status, involving natives in the administration is dominion status. Indianization of civil services, promotion of. Let's understand dominion status. So they want Indians to get into the administration. That is what they mean by calling dominion status. Second is Indianization of civil services. Yes, it's the same point essentially. Indian civil services were being run by the Britons. By the British, they want more Indian representation in the Indian civil services to create more and also to reduce the hurdles that British were actually creating in order to, they were basically British were trying to increase the age, reduce the age limit for entering into civil service. They're also introducing unnecessary Greek and Latin language in order to make it difficult for Indians to get into civil services. In order to reduce the hurdles, the moderates have took a stand. Third is promotion of modern industries. See, anyway, the colonialists have exploited us through their market mechanism, the colonial exploitation. They have completely destroyed our Indian handicrafts. So moderates were of the opinion that at least, chalo, you have destroyed our Indian industry. At least improve the modern industry here, bring some modern industry here. So modernization of industry was favored by moderates in order to bring some capitalism and entrepreneurs in Indian systems. Fourth is the promotion of Western education. The moderates wanted education to be promoted in India because at that time, only just for the sake of saying, we had only two colleges. One is agriculture college in Pusa, and then there's engineering college in Roorkee. And these were also not very functional, not very effective at that time. Of course, now the Roorkee Engineering College is what now IIT we have as IIT Roorkee. And now all these were the demands or end goals of moderates. But what were the means? What is the methodology that was taken by them? One is very peaceful constitutional agitation. Whatever the moderates wanted, they did it through peaceful act. Like even if the a resolution that happened, any agitation they want, they always went to the police station. They got the permissions, and if the permission was denied, they probably went back. So that's how they carried out the agitations. But one important aspect is press, the importance of press or the journals. Every moderate, or almost essentially every moderate, had his own journal, and that journal was more like a view paper of propagating his ideas and taking his ideas to at least the upper urban classes. One is, let's discuss the list of journals like Bombay Chronicles, which is started by Parasha Mehta and B.G. Horniman, Sudharak by Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Bengali and Amrita Bazar Patrika by Shishir Kumar Ghosh. Sorry, Bengali was started by Girish Kumar Ghosh, and later on it was compiled by Surendranath Banerjee. Amrita Bazar Patrika was started by Shishir Kumar Ghosh, Voice of India and Ras Goftar by Dadabhai Naoroji. There's a triple P strategy that was followed: prayers, petitions, and protests. This is the means of moderates. Now let's see the critical evaluation. Moderates had no faith in masses. They did not believe in the mass power, and they always considered mass as illiterate. They had faith in the Britishers, and their forms of protest. We already saw that it's, political begging. It's also like they just prayed and protested with the British. Right. I'm just turning off my flux. Next, we move on to the contribution of moderates. Although they were not very effective in working or contributing to the cause of freedom struggle. It was also considered important because they promoted certain ideals like democracy and the idea of parliament, republic system, constitution, equality, liberty. These ideas were promoted by moderates, and that was very important. Next, we see that this particular time was known as seed time, the 1885 to 1905, till the time that extremists have come into the scene. All this time was considered as seed time, and they also exploited. They also exposed the exploitation on the economic front that British were carrying out in India. For example, through Dadabhai Naoroji's uh, economic exploitation work that was carried out, right? Uh, and moderates were given a very strong base in to Congress. So they also had a very good strong base that actually made Congress Party an entity to be considered in the fight for freedom struggle, right? Now let's go on to the extremists. The extremist phase is between 1905 to 1920. We begin with the very important leaders, and then we go on to the act that was, or the methodology that was followed by the extremists. We begin with very important trinity of extremist phase, that is Lal Bal Pal. One is Bal Gangadhar Tilak. He was born in 1886 in Pune in Chippawan Brahmin family. And in 1891, when Age of Consent Act was passed with the help of Behramji and Mulberry that we saw, in order to increase the age of marriageable age of girl child to 12 years, our Bal Gangadhar Tilak actually was against British interference in Age of Consent Act. He actually wanted the British not to interfere in our social internal affairs. And he actually started some traditional festivals like Ganesh Festival, which is actually going on until now, and also Shivaji Festival. Muslims were actually not impressed with the Tilak forming the Shivaji Festival. That's how they were aloof with the extremist movement. And there's one British author called Valentine Chirol. Valentine Chirol. He called Bal Gangadhar Tilak as the father of Indian unrest. So the father of Indian unrest is not Mahatma Gandhi. Father of Indian unrest is Bal Gangadhar Tilak, according to the British author Valentine Chirol. If this is a question, then you can go ahead and mark. Bal Gangadhar Tilak is the father of Indian unrest. And he famously said, Bal Gangadhar Tilak has famously said, freedom is my birthright and I shall have it. In 1896, he started no tax movement in India, which is considered more radical than actually taking up arms against the British, because they always wanted to exploit us economically, and everything was around that in order to facilitate their economic exploitation. Bal Gangadhar Tilak started two novels. One is Kesari in Marathi and Maharatha in English, and he was, because of the ideas that were being propagated through these journals, he was arrested twice. First in the year 1998 for 1.5 years. Then later on in the year 1908. 1898 he was jailed for 1.5 years, and later on in the year 1908 he was jailed for like 6 years. And so by the time he returned in 1914, he almost returned with a complete moderate ideals. Like he went in as an extremist and he came out as a moderate. And when he came out, he said, Swaraj means it is not complete independence. I mean, we don't want any independence. All we need is self rule. Give us the authority to rule ourselves, irrespective of your presence in India. So that was the understanding of. That was the story about Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and why not Mahatma Bal Gangadhar Tilak. And what is unfortunate is he died in 1920, and that is the arrival of Gandhi into the Indian independence scenario, and it's very unfortunate. After Tilak, we then move on to Lala Lajpat Rai. Lala Lajpat Rai, he wrote biographies of Mazini, Garibaldi, Shivaji, and Sri Krishna. This is one of the previous year questions asked in the year 2020 of UPSC. And 1916, he founded Indian Home Rule League in the United States. Indian Home Rule League in United States was founded by Lala Lajpat Rai. And then we have he's popularly known as the Punjab Kesari. Punjab Kesari is Lala Lajpat Rai. He was elected to the Central Assembly, and he also wrote a book. He started a paper called Punjabi, right? It's a journal or a paper that was published called Punjabi, and he wrote a book called Unhappy India. So he's from Punjab. Punjab people are happy. So Unhappy India was the book that was written by Lala Lajpat Rai, and he also wrote a book called Arya Samaj. His death. So this is it is his death that was avenged later on by Hindustan Socialist Republic Army, that is Chandrasekhar Azad, Bhagat Singh, right? Next, we move on to discuss about Bipin Chandrapal. Bipin Chandrapal is an extremist leader from Punjab. He started journals like New India and Paridarshak. Aurobindo Ghosh started a journal called Bande Matram. Then we move on to Bipin Chandrapal. Basically, he wears a specs, so we can remember that he wrote something like Darshak. So Paridarshak and New India were the books written by Bipin Chandrapal. New India, if we remember, that is also a journal that was written by Annie Besant. We discussed about her when we were discussing about occult movement. What was that? Theosophical Society of Madam Henry P. Blavatsky. Then we discuss about Aurobindo Ghosh. Aurobindo Ghosh, he started a journal called Bande Matram. In 1909, he came out of politics because of Maniktala bomb conspiracy. He was acquitted in that. He was saved in that. And later on, 1909, he came down to South India and he settled as a Swamiji in Pondicherry. He died later on in the year 1950. He wrote some books like Life Divine, Savitri, and New Lamps for the Old. Then we discuss about another important prominent leader from Punjab, that is Ajit Singh. He's the uncle of Bhagat Singh, and he founded two organizations, Bharat Mata Society and Anjuman Muhabbati Watan, Association of Lovers of the Country. And he founded two journals like Bharat Mata and Peshwa, right? Bharat Mata, we can remember that because he founded this Bharat Mata Association. And also Peshwa, we can remember, that is associated with Ajit Singh, right? What are the forms of struggle? So far we have seen the leaders that are associated with the extremists. Now let's go on to the forms of struggle or methodology that was taken up by the extremists in order to carry out this in freedom struggle. I need to hold this here. Then we have forms of struggle. There are two important forms. One is Swadeshi, and second is passive resistance. Also, that's followed by formation of corps of volunteer. What is Swadeshi? Aurobindo Ghosh, who has authored this Swadeshi movement, has described it as organized refusal of everything that is British. So whatever is British, we need to cancel it. Cancel culture back in the times of British. Right. Then we talk about passive resistance, which is nothing but, which is again authored by Aurobindo Ghosh. It is nothing but passively accepting or resisting the actions of the British or the police. Say, for example, Jail Baro program, where if lathi charge takes place, they should not run away, but they should just cooperate with the police and just go and fill all the prisons, and they just have to remain passive. That is the passive resistance movement. Thirdly, there's formation of corps of volunteers. Volunteers of youth, basically. They believe in youth capacity, and there is one Samiti called Samiti Swadeshi Bandhav Samiti, which was formed by Ashwini Kumar Dutt. There is Yuvashan Samiti, which is formed in Barisal town in Bengal. So all these formation of corps of volunteers were also important strategy or methodology that was followed by the extremists. What are the events that were happening and during this time parallelly? We have in 1903, Curzon has passed this, has announced this partition of Bengal. So he has seen that, okay, there is some unity that is brewing in our country. There's nothing that he can do if this gets into a massive scale. So they decided to play the communal card. So they decided to attack us communally by dividing Bengal into two parts based on uh, the religious segregation or the demography that is there. Essentially, that is the reason, but outwardly they're saying it for administrative. They said the reason was for administrative purpose. So Bengal was divided as Eastern Bengal and West Bengal. East Bengal was the now Bangladesh, which has like Muslim majority, and then there's West Bengal, Hindu majority. And Lord Curzon said that was for administrative purposes, but it is more like a territorial adjustment that is based on the religion. And because the West Bengal essentially had around five crore Hindus, and the East Bengal, which is like Bangladesh, had 3 crore Muslims. So we did not want this to happen because that would actually be a counterproductive for our independence struggle, and therefore we carried out anti-partition movement. And this time there was one moderate leader that led the movement during this time because moderates were ruling till the 1905. So this moderate leader called Surendranath Banerjee, right? Surendranath Banerjee was the leader of this anti-partition movement that were taking place during the period of 1903 to 1905. But that was a failure because the movement was of no use because the partition did take place. That's also one of the failure of the moderates. On the 16th of October 1905, the partition of Bengal materialized. It came into effect, and that is a very dark day. So before we discuss what happened in the after the as a consequence of the split, we'll understand about some of the important sessions of Congress. In 1905, these sessions are actually the build up to the Surat split that happened. Because basically in Surat session of Congress in 1907, the Congress was internally split into two parts. One is moderates and extremists, right? Before that, 1905, there's a session that was held in Banaras or Varanasi. So the president was Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who was a moderate, and he passed a Swadeshi resolution to allow that, okay, the extremists can do their movement. And so it's just like considering 1905, they acknowledge the presence of extremists, Swadeshi resolution. Next year comes 1906. This was happening in Calcutta. So from Varanasi, we are going anti-clockwise to Calcutta. And then what happens is here the fight was about presidents. Tilak wanted to be the president. He's an extremist. He wanted to be the president, but moderates were refusing to give. So there was a ground for split that was happening at this time. But Dadabhai Naoroji, being the grand old man of India, he tried to pull everybody down and he said, "Let me be the president." So everybody settled down. He was the president for the 1906 session. Then in the year 1907, what happens is again anti-clockwise, Benares, Calcutta, and then let's go back to Surat. Surat, there's another president, Ras Bihari Ghosh. Remember, this is not Ras Bihari Bose, who is a revolutionary. We are talking about Ras Bihari Ghosh, who is a moderate. Who's a moderate. He's not an extremist either. He was a moderate who was taking up the presidency in Surat. This time, all the fight for presidency of Tilak, all the extremists, which was only a philosophical fight in the previous session, now it turned into a physical fight. I'm sorry, it was an ideological fight previously. Now it turned into physical fight, and people started fighting over there. Then that is a moment Mr. Morley was enjoying. He said he was remarking to his secretary Morley. Minto was saying that this Indian National Congress has collapsed at Surat. This was the words. These were the words that were written by Minto in a letter to Morley. It is a great triumph or victory to the British in India, is what he said. The two mass movements were taken up by these extremists. Like talking about extremists, that is, who have taken up the leadership of Indian freedom struggle after 1905. They have taken up two important movements. One is Swadeshi movement 1905 1908. Second is the Home Rule movement of 1916 to 1917. During World War One, we'll get to this point later when we get to World War One. Let's talk about the moments that were taken up by the extremists. That is Swadeshi movement. 1905. This is actually an anti-partition movement that was taken up by the extremists for the annulment or cancellation of for the partition. And so we can understand the anti-partition movement that was taken up before the partition was done by the moderates under the leadership of Surendranath Banerjee. After the partition, it was taken up by the extremists, right? They called it Vande Mataram movement. This is also known as Vande Mataram movement because the theme song for this entire movement was written by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay. He also wrote a novel in the year 1882 named Anandmat, and there was a song that was included in it. That is Vande Mataram, and this became the theme of the entire movement, Vande Mataram. It is here that we have to note there's another revolt that is happening in the year 1770 to 1880. Nothing to do with it, but we just have to remember that this revolt is nothing but sannyasi revolt. It is known as one of the first patriotic events that were happening as a fight against the British, and it was taken up not by the reformers, not by the leaders, but by the sannyasis, that is our very own saints. So there was a very worst famine that was happening at killing like one third of the people in Bengal region. But there was nothing that British were doing. They were still stock holding the grain for themselves. So 60% of the crop was also taken by zamindars. So this fight for the food, not just for the welfare they meditate, but the sadhus or the sannyasis, they have come down and they started fighting physically for the first time under this sannyasi revolt. All these events were recorded by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay in Anand Math. And this is the very book that also has a song called Vande Mataram. That's why we discussed a little background about this. Sannyasi movement. So what the British played here is they played a cruel game. They tried to again divide us based on a religion, divide and rule. So they said Muslim. They spoke to Muslims that Vande Mataram is an attribution of Bharat Mata, which is an idolatry. So they were keen on to they try to brainwash Muslims, saying that you are essentially against idolatry and you believe in only one God. So why do you have to take up this Vande Mataram slogan? Because this is essentially like giving recognition to a figure, an idolatry worship of sorts. So this is how they try to divide our unity in our struggle for freedom during this extremist phase, right? So that's how Vande Mataram was also not very popular. That's how we'll get into Janagana Mana, how it was invented later on in 1911 when the King of England visits India. King George IV visits India later in the year 1911. That's when Rabindranath Tagore had written Janagana Mana, and that later on becomes our national anthem and not Vande Mataram. Of course, it still remains as a national song. Um, Now, what are the other activities that were happening in the Swadeshi movement? 16th October 1905 is the when the partition has come into force, and according to Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, so this he called this day as Raksha Bandhan Day, and he wrote Amar Shonal Bangla on that day. It's a really beautiful song. It's a Bangladeshi national anthem, and whenever you hear, you get goosebumps. You just fall in love with that song, Amar Shonar Bangla. Uh, you have to hear this song. Go stop this video, just listen to Amar Shonal Bangla, like the video, whichever video that is, like all of the videos, and then come back to this. Then we have he also wrote he has written the Gitanjali novel in the year 1913. Then we speak about the British goods. So what other activity was happening in this anti-partition movement? Boycott of British goods. They tried to revive all the indigenous and artisan crafts and industries by this economic nationalism that we wanted to boycott all that is British, right? And we started opening up our Swadeshi stores, which are being set up by our Indian leaders. For example, in 1907, Praful Chandra Ray, scientist, like there's a scientific, I think he's a physicist, he started a Bengali chemical stores with the economic assistance of Rabindranath Tagore. And then in Andhra, there is something called Godavari Swadeshi goods that was started by Narayan Rao. So boycott of British goods was also being done on a big scale. Thirdly, what we are doing is boycott of British educational institutions. We found the National Council of Education in the year 1906 in Bengal. This is one of the previous questions which was asked in UPSC 2022. 1907, 2021, right? In 1907, Calcutta, Bengal National College was founded by Aravinda Ghosh as principal. So 1907, Bengal National College, 1906, National Council of Education. 1906, National Council of Education was founded in Bengal. And again, 1907, Bengal National College was found with Aravinda Ghosh as the principal. Then we have, let's talk about the different leaders that were involved in this movement. One is Bipin Chandrapal, Ashwini Kumar Dutt, and Aravinda Ghosh. Bombay province or Maharashtra movement, Balagangadhar Tilak. Punjab, there is Lala Lajpat Rai and Ajit Singh. Delhi, there is Syed Hazar Raja, and Madras, Chidambaram Pillai. So all the leaders, let's see again. Bengal region, there's Bipin Chandrapal, Ashwini Kumar Dutt, and Aravinda Ghosh, right? In Bombay province or Maharashtra province, there is Balagangadhar Tilak, that is one-man army. In Punjab, there is Lala Lajpat Rai, and also we have Ajit Singh, who is uncle of Bhagat Singh. In Delhi, there is Syed Haider Raja, and there is Chidambaram Pillai in Madras. In 1908, the movement has disappeared. I'm sorry, because there was lack of any leadership, and this movement disappeared without the annulment of goal of partition. What are the various factors that were responsible for this disappearance? One is suppression. Like British were very came down very strong on this moment. Second is there's a conflict within the Congress itself. Like the moderates never participated in this. They only left it to the extremists. They just wanted to see how they wanted to go, how they would be successful without the support of moderates for some reason. And then there is dearth of leadership. It went leaderless after Bipin Chandrapal has resigned from active politics, and Aravindo Ghosh, in fact, he has left and he came down and became a Swamiji in South India. And Tilak was sent to moderate Mandalay prison, where he became moderate, and he said, "Arey, all this Swadeshi doesn't mean that British have to leave India. They just have to give self-rule to Indians, and or dominion status is what we are asking for." And then another factor is non-participation of Muslims. We just saw how Tilak's Shivaji movement was not popular with Muslims, and also the Vande Mataram of objectifying it as an idol to be a point of contradiction with the Muslims or their faith of not worshipping idols. So that all that adds to why there's an antagonism between Muslims and the Swadeshi movement of the extremists. So, in fact, there's another third important factor called formation of a new party that was exclusively meant for Muslims, that is Muslim League Party, that happened during 1906, and that also stopped all the Muslim masses from joining this Swadeshi movement. Otherwise, we had a very good population of Muslims at that time, almost like one third, 33% of Indian population was Muslims at that time. If they had cooperated, I think we would have got it probably a little earlier. The independence would have been achieved a little earlier. Then, but there's a beautiful thing that happened is, although this Swadeshi movement was meant for annulment of partition, but it was stopped without achieving the object of annulment. But still, the annulment happened by itself without anything additionally that is done by from our side, because the British themselves have cancelled this partition when their Crown of King George V was visiting in India in 1911. So whenever the CEO of a company visits, he generally gives some bonus or something. Just like that, when King George IV was visiting India, he just wanted to give some favors just to earn the popularity, or just earn the praise of the people. So he cancelled this. He passed orders resolution, or the then Viceroy Hardinge II. He held a grand darbar at that time in Delhi, and he built this Gateway of India just for this invitation of King of George V. And at that point, he made this announcement to annul or cancel the partition of Bengal that was happening. And there was another demand that was put forward by the Muslim League, that is to shift the Indian capital from Calcutta to Delhi. So these two were implemented in the following year, but the announcement was done in 1911 itself. So we can see some significance of Swadeshi movement is that in history it is the first mass movement. So mass mobilization was seen. And also there's a lot of growth of Indian economy or industry that is happening as a countering factor that was happening to boycott the British, economic institutions or industries. And there were new forms of struggle that were brewing, like Swadeshi, passive resistance. All these were enabling people to choose their forms of struggle. And also, there's economic nationalism that was happening in this place. In cultural sphere, also, Swadeshi movement was taking place, and we have a few important names and their works to remember here. Rabindranath Tagore's Amar Shonor Bangla, Dakshin Ranjan Mitra's Thakur Marjoli, Subramanya Bharatiyar's Sudesha Geetangal, Abanindranath Tagore's indigenous paintings, Nandalal Bose Indian Society of Oriental Art. He actually received the scholarship, first recipient of scholarship. And then there's Jagadish Chandra Bose and Prafulla Chandra Ray in the field of science. P.C. Ray, he's the same guy who has established a chemical factory with the aid from Rabindranath Tagore, right? Then we also have Then let's move on to another important methodology that was adopted by the extremists. First, we have seen Swadeshi, it's done. Now let's move on to the home rule movement. Home rule movement. So Swadeshi movement as was during the time of the first set of first phase of the extremists. That is immediately after getting the power of Congress, 1905 till 1911. Yes, 1909. That's when it survived and it went leaderless after that. Then, in the second phase of within the extremism itself, when we see somewhere towards the mid 1910s, that is 1916 onwards, that is where this home rule movement was started as a part of methodology of the extremists. So this is the second mass movement of extremists, and the first time they raised a demand for complete independence. Later on, not in this moment. First, the only moment where they raised for complete independence is later on, 1929. But home rule, they just asked for self rule. They only meant for self rule, and this is what even Tilak was coming back with the moderate ideals, right? So this is the aim that he had in mind: self rule. The concept of so this concept of home rule movement was brought to India from Ireland by Annie Besant. So that's what she had witnessed over there. The British have come to an agreement of Ireland where they allow the home rule of Irish people. So this concept was introduced in India. Annie Besant was in hopes to achieve this type of concept in India, and this was also supported by Tilak. Tilak, however, had implemented his home rule movement much ahead of Annie Besant also, and did that across India. Tilak's home rule movement was limited to Maharashtra region. So immediately after returning from Mandalay jail, Tilak, in the month of April 1916, he founded an organization called Home Rule League, and Tilak's Home Rule League in April, and Annie Besant's Home Rule League was in September of the same year, 1916. We also have to remember that there's another Home Rule league that was happening. That is in 1905, much ahead of all these home rules that we're talking about. S.K. Verma has done this Home Rule League much ahead. That is outside of India, and we'll get to that when we get to that. Then we also have Joseph Baptista. When we're speaking about Tilak, there's Joseph Baptista, who was the president, N.C. Kelkar as the secretary, and Tilak was a moving spirit in this organization, and he was confined. He confined these movements only through three provinces. Tilak's home rule movement was confined to three provinces, that is Bombay province, Calcutta province, and Karnataka province. And Tilak was good. He got very good network, and only these regions: Bombay region, Karnataka region, and Central region. That is Madhya Pradesh. But rest of the India was under the influence of Annie Besant's home rule movement, and there were three important demands that were raised by Tilak during this home rule league. That were self rule. Second is education in vernacular languages, that is our own mother tongue, and third is creation of linguistic provinces. So he was the first person to insist that states should be divided based on the languages. Tilak, creation of linguistic provinces. Tilak was given the title of Lokamanya during this time. So when was Tilak given Lokamanya? Title of Lokamanya? It was during the Home Rule movement. And then we move on to discuss about Annie Besant's home rule movement, Home Rule League. In the year of September 1916, Annie Besant, she started her own Home Rule League, and the organization was started in Madras with her own self as a president. And then we have General Secretary as Ramaswamy Iyer. We have BP Wadia as treasurer. It is important to note that this is the same BP Wadia who has started the Madras Labour Union, which is the first trade union in the country. And Annie Besant Home Rule League was more widespread. In the mid 1970s, the movement disappeared. However, we have to remember that in mid 1970s, this Home Rule League had disappeared. In 1920, All India Home Rule League changed its name to Swarajya Sabha. All right. Now let's discuss about the reasons for disappearing of the home rule movement. There was severe suppression that was happening from the British. There's also Muslims and Dalits have never participated in this. Like at this time, together they combined 50% of the population, but Dalits didn't want to support because Congress Party was essentially at that time more of Brahmin, taking up the demography of the Congress, and therefore they were not willing to support them. And then there's another important reason why the home rule movement disappeared is like on 20th August of 1917, there was a declaration that was made officially by the British, which is called also known as August Declaration. So this was given by Edward Montagu. He promised two things. One is to give the self-rule. The very demand that was asked by Home Rule is self-rule. So self-rule was also promised. Second, he also said they are going to give us responsible government. Responsible government is nothing but parliamentary system, and but they have to wait until the World War ends. So essentially, every time the war comes, they'll promise some things and they say that you have to wait until the war is done and you have to do some favors. And that favor is that we have to essentially send people to die in the war. Basically, you have to wait until the World War One. So Tilak and Annie Besant dropped out from the Home Rule movement. In 1916, the Congress held its sessions in Lucknow, and it is known as Lucknow session. 1916 Lucknow session. Is also important because of two events. We remembered how the Surat session in 1907, that's where the moderates and extremists have split. This session, Lucknow session of 1916, becomes important because that's where the Lucknow merger is going to happen. The moderates have accepted the extremists back into the Congress. So there's sort of a reunion that is happening. And why this is happening is because now the extremists also have more of a moderate sort of a goal only. Because Tilak has agreed that self-rule only is the aim of extremists, and it's not that they want complete independence. And also there is death of important moderates also at that time, like Ferozshah Mehta and Gopal Krishna Gokhale. There was dearth of leadership, so they wanted to unite the forces of extremist and moderates that is happening in the um, uh, Lucknow session of 1916 under the presidentship of A.C. Majumdar. A.C. Majumdar, his full name is Ambika Chandra Majumdar. Lucknow session of 1916 is also important for another reason, that is Lucknow Pact. Lucknow Pact is an agreement between two rivalries, that is Congress and Muslim League. Both the Congress and Muslim League have joined hands in order to fight against the British. The factors are like three-fourths of any region against any resolution. So up until that point, Congress was against Muslim League on the main ground that British had favored this electoral sort of electoral representation for Muslims, and Congress was vehemently opposed to that. Right? But Muslims also were against this British. Until then, they were pro-British, but then they suddenly turned anti because without consulting Muslims, the Bengal was merged in the year 1911. Also, there was a rise of new, younger leadership like Maulana Abul Kalam Azad and Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And we have to remember that Al Hilal was a paper that was started by Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, and Comrade was a paper that was started by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Because of these factors and also the efforts of Tilak and Muhammad Ali Jinnah, so Tilak had convinced basically Congress Party, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah convinced the Muslim League in order to come together, join forces, and fight against British. So the separate electorate was agreed to be given to the Muslim League by the 1909 Act. So this 1909 Act is essentially Morley-Minto reforms. And until that point, Congress was fighting against that separate electorate, and it's one of the biggest mistake is that to give into or to compromise for this separate electorate. And then there is a demand uh, for reservation of in the legislation execution as well, in the right uh, right executive as well. So during this Lucknow Lucknow Pact, there was a comment that was passed by Morley Minto. They said the seeds of partition. Morley had written to Minto saying, "We are sowing the dragon's teeth, and the harvest will be bitter," which means very dangerous. So they realized that this sort of divide and rule that they're doing is really dangerous for them. They realized this, and this was recorded by Morley. Now let's move on to the next sort of leadership, that is revolutionary terrorism. This is not exactly a leadership, but this is in the hands of terror. There is two periods essentially. One is revolutionary terrorism that happened up to the year 1915, and then revolutionary terrorism phase that was happening after 1924. These two will be discussed as separate entities before we get into the Gandhian phase. So let's begin with revolutionary terrorism phase one. That is up to 1915. So last decade of 19th century, starting from the 20th century, the revolutionary terrorism took place. That is, it initially started from Maharashtra and later on it spread to South India. So what are the factors for this? There's a lot of extreme reactionary rule of the British. They were harassing us. They were vehemently coming down on every moment that was taken up by the Congress. And also the youth of the country they lost faith in the moderate approach. Um, there's also some external factors because there is a rise of youth associations in, let's say, Carbonari in Italy that was happening in the 1800s. That also, the information about the secret revolutionary societies also reached India. And also there's nihilists that were happening, that was happening in Russia. The youth of Russia, the nihilists, they were more ultra radicals and they were fighting against the monarchy rule of Russia. All these influence and also there is Irish Republic Army. uh, all these were the external factors that are influencing the revolutionary terrorism in India. Revolutionary terrorism in India can be studied in two phases. One is up to 1915, that is 1890s to 1915. Second is after 1925 onwards. And in both the cases, we see how it is happening in India and abroad. So let's begin with the first revolutionary terrorism phase, and began in Maharashtra. There's one, we can say the origin of revolutionary terrorism happened in Maharashtra. One great person called Vasudev Balwant Phadke. So he's known as the father of revolutionary terrorism moment in India. He raised the Ramosi peasant force, and his ultimate goal was armed struggle. In 1875, he was arrested by the Nizam of Hyderabad and handed over to British. So Indians were acting basically against Indians only. And he was sent to Aden jail, where he died in the jail itself. Aden is basically Yemen. So, who is the father of Indian revolutionarism, Indian revolutionary movement in India? That is Vasudev Balwant Phadke of Maharashtra. He raised Ramosi peasant force, and 1875 he was arrested by Hyderabad, Nizam of Hyderabad. He was handed over to British, and he was sent to Aden jail, that is Yemen. Next, we go on to Chapekar brothers. There's a Marathi movie. If you want to check about them, there's a trailer. At least you can have a look in order to get the feel of Chapekar brothers. There is four brothers, I guess. Damodar Chapekar, Balakrishna Chapekar, and Vasudev Hardev Chapekar. Right. Um, in 1893, they founded a revolutionary organization called Hindu Dharma Samrakshak Sabha. Hindu Dharma Samrakshak Sabha, and it was founded in Pune. And they assassinated an officer named Rand. Rand is actually a plague commissioner, and there was a plague that was you know that was prevalent in Pune, and he did not take care of his job seriously, and he was um, doing many atrocities during that time, instead of the preventive measures that he had to take under the plague. So they were really bothered by this, and all the three brothers were actually hanged for killing of Officer Rand. Then we move on to the controversial brothers, Savarkar brothers, Ganesh Savarkar and V.D. Savarkar, Naik Damodar Savarkar. The two brothers have founded an organization called Mitra Mela in Nasik city in the year 1889. In 1904, they renamed it to Abhinav Bharat. The activities of Abhinav Bharat include uh, two important persons that we are going to discuss is Anant Lakshman Kharkare and Madan Lal Dhingra. Ananta Lakshman Karkare in 1909, he assassinated the judge of Nasik by the name Jackson. This Jackson judge is very sort of notorious for his judgments, and he was killed by Ananta Lakshman Karkare, who was part of Abhinav Bharat. Abhinav Bharat was founded by the Savarkar brothers. Second is Madan Lal Dhingra. He was a classmate of V.D. Savarkar. He went to London and he was very active in this Abhinav Bharat activities. In 1909, he assassinated an officer named Cousin Willie while he was in London. So after these two events, both the brothers were arrested and they were sent to Andaman jail. And that's where V.D. Savarkar was arrested, and then he had to write some apology letter, and that's there. And then V.D. Savarkar, like almost 14 years, he was in prison, and he was released in the year 1924. Then he promoted communal hatred. Okay, I don't know. I'm just reading out of this. Don't take anything if you're on any side of the spectrum, like left or right. It's just there in the notes, and that's all I'm saying. I don't support or anything either. We are work for the executive. We are hope to work for the executive. We write the exam, we pass, and we get into the system. Hopefully. Otherwise, we get on with our usual lives, get into art, do whatever we like, die someday happily, leave our work behind. So he becomes the president of All India Hindu Mahasabha, AIHMS, and he's considered to be the father of Hindutva, right? He's considered to be the father of Hindutva, and even Godse or Natharam Godse was also a strong disciple of V.D. Savarkar. So Savarkar was fortunately he was acquitted from hanging, and since there was no evidence of him that he took place in the murders of cousin Willie or Judge Jackson, that was actually taken up by Anantalakshman Karkare or Madan Lal Dhingra. And in the last two decades, also this Abhinav Bharat was very active until now. I should have a word in this part. Bengal. Bengal. Now let's move on to the Bengal region. In 1902, there was two revolutionaries that were associated with Bengal. That is Anushilin Samiti of Calcutta and Anushilin Samiti of Dhaka. Anushilin Samiti of Dhaka, or that is in Dhaka or Bangladesh. It was founder is Pulin Bihari Das, and they were associated with Bara dacoity. The dacoity was done in order to raise funds for revolutionary activities. It's in Bangladesh. Anushilin Samiti of Dhaka. Now let's get into more important Anushilin Samiti, that is Anushilin Samiti of Calcutta. It has got over 500 branches across Bengal. Four important founders: Pramod Mittal, Jatindranath Banerjee, Barinder Kumar Ghosh, and Bhupendranath Datta. Barinder Kumar Ghosh is brother of Aravindo Ghosh. Bhupendranath Datta is brother of Swami Vivekananda. So here what happened is they were involved in a conspiracy case called Alipur conspiracy case, also known as Maniktala conspiracy case or Alipur conspiracy case. Everything indicated the same thing. There's a city in Calcutta called Alipur. There's another bomb factory that was started by these Anushilin Samiti of Calcutta, which is called Maniktala, right? It is the headquarters of the Anushilin Samiti. And in 1909, the police have raided the Maniktala garden and they found all the 72 revolutionaries red-handedly. What were they involved in? Not just the bomb factory. They were involved in a attempt. Sort of, they wanted to kill the Kingsford judge. They wanted to kill an assassinated judge called Kingsford. He was actually a judge of Muzaffarnagar in Bihar. So they threw in 1908. Members of this Anushilin Samiti have thrown some bombs on judge. He escaped, but unfortunately, two British women have died who was sitting behind him. And in this incident, two important revolutionaries of Anushilin Samiti were caught. One is Khudiram Bose, who in 1909 was hanged at the age of 17. At the age of 17, can you remember? Can you imagine? So we have Prafulla Kumar Chakki or Shikri. Yeah, Prafulla Kumar Chakki. He committed suicide by pumping bullets into his own body. So that is all that we have to remember about Anushilin Samiti of Calcutta. Once again, the important founders are Pramod Mittal, Jatindranath Banerjee, Barinder Kumar Ghosh, and Bhupendranath Datta. Important point to remember here is, it is in this case of Maniktala bomb conspiracy case, Barinder Kumar Ghosh was convicted, but his brother Aurobindo Ghosh was acquitted. So Aurobindo Ghosh was acquitted in this case, and then he came down to Pondicherry. He became a sannyasi, he became a Swamiji, and he set up now Aurobindo Ashram and the mystic religion that is happening over there. You can visit and take a look over there. Then we have Jatin Mukherjee or Jatin Mukherjee, right? Jatin Mukherjee, is he Bhaga Jatin? Yeah, Jatin Mukherjee or Bhaga Jatin. Jatin Mukherjee is associated with Zimmerman Plan. Wherever Zimmerman Plan, you hear about Zimmerman Plan, 1911, 1912. It is associated with Jatinder Mukherjee, also known as Bhaga Jatin. He raised taxi cab dacoities for insurrection. He raised all the money, taxi money, for all the carrying out all the insurrection, right? Then he founded an organization called Yugantar Party or Gaddar Party in the 1914, and all his activities, his branches were active in Bengal and Orissa. So people used to call him Bhaga Jatin. In fact, he took down a tiger with his bare hands, like that RRR scene from NTR. That actually happened to Bhaga Jatin. You can look it up. In 1915, he was killed later in an encounter in Orissa. Now we move on to another region, that is Delhi. How did revolutionary activities take place in Delhi? In 1912, there was an attempt on Hardinge, Viceroy Hardinge. And what happened is capital was shifted from the previous year because King George V was coming, and Muslim League had put forward a request in order to shift the capital from Calcutta to Delhi. And the very subsequent year, the revolutionaries like Sachindra Sanyal and Rasbihari Bose wanted to throw bombs and kill this end Hardinge. But what happened is he actually miraculously escaped from there, and this actually happened near the Chandni Chowk area, if you're aware. And Sachindra Sanyal, he was left free for that time. Like he was let to go. Ras Bihari Bose, he actually escaped from that point, like from the site of hurling the bombs, and he escaped to Japan. And we'll see what happened to him after that. He escapes to Japan, he gets settled over there, and then he starts Indian Independence League and all that. But so far, we have seen about two revolutionaries that are associated with this Delhi attack, Delhi bomb on Hardinge, 1912. There's other four more people that were executed here. We have to remember the names of Basant Kumar Biswas. Basant Kumar Biswas. There is Amir Chand, Awadh Bihari, and Balmukh. Awadh Bihari and Bhalok. Basant Kumar Biswas, Amir Chand, Awadh Bihari. Probably you can remember these three names at least. Basant Kumar Biswas, Amir Chand, Awadh Bihari. Delhi Hardinge case, right? Basant Kumar Biswas. You remember Biswas. And Amir Chand. Chandni Chowk, there's Chand is there. So you can remember Chand. Awadh Bihari. Awadh Bihari. Awadh Bihari. I'm not saying anything. No association trick for this. You can remember. Basant Kumar Bishwas, Amit Chand, and Awadh Bihari. They were the people that were executed when they were caught on hurling bombs at Hardinge in the Delhi revolutionary activities in the year 1911, 1912. Then we move on to Madras. Let's come down to the south. We have Vanchi Iyer. He's founder of a secret association called Bharat Mata Association. And one of the biggest achievement of Vanchi Iyer is in the year 1911, he assassinated a district collector named Ashe, and he was involved in suppression of Swadeshi movement. In Ashe was actually the same guy who was involved in the suppression of Swadeshi movement that was carried out by the extremists in Tirunelveli, Tuticorin. Next, let's move on to the revision terrorism phase one that is happening simultaneously abroad. In London, there's an Indian Home Rule Society. So when we were discussing Home Rule League of Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Annie Besant, we also remember that there's another Home Rule Society that was happening abroad, right? This was started by Pandit Shyamji Krishna Varma. Pandit Shyamji Krishna Varma started near Home Rule Society, way ahead of Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Annie Besant. This is in the year 1905, right? Indian Home Rule League. And he also started a journal called Indian Sociologist, right? Indian Sociologist. And right, we have anything important to say? To remember here? That's it. That's all about London. As far as London is concerned, Indian Home Rule Society, and there is Indian Sociologist, a magazine that was started by Shyamji Krishna Varma, right? And let's move on to the Paris. Paris in France. The revolutionary activities here were carried out by Madame Bikaji Kama, right? She is very interesting because she used to smuggle the guns and send them as Christmas gifts. Such a what to say, striking image, to smuggle guns and send them as Christmas gifts as toys to India. And she was exiled from India, and she founded a journal called Vande Mataram. Vande Mataram by Madame Bikaji Kama, France. Ajit Singh, who was uncle of Bhagat Singh, actually operated from here, France, from Madame Bikaji Kama, right? Then we have Berlin. Berlin, there is Vande Mataram. There's a newspaper that was started by Aurobindo Ghosh. Vande Mataram. Right. No, this is not, Berlin is not related to Vande Mataram. I'm just saying that's a contrast that you can remember, because Vande Mataram is a journal that was founded by Madame Bikaji Kama. But you can remember there's also another similarly sounding journal that was called as Vande Mataram, that was written by Aurobindo Ghosh. Vande Mataram, Aurobindo Ghosh, Vande Mataram by Madame Bikaji Kama, right? Now let's move on to another location called Berlin. That's in Germany. There's a Bengali revolutionary called Virendra Chattopadhyay who settled in Berlin, and he started a journal called Talwar. In Tokyo, Japan, then we have revolutionary activities taken up by Ras Bihari Bose. This is the same Ras Bihari Bose who actually hurled bombs in Delhi, and he safely escaped to Japan, Tokyo. And he started Indian Independence League. Later, this was merged with Azad Hind Fauj of Subhash Chandra Bose. And before that, there is Indian National Army of Mohan Singh, right? Then Vancouver in City of Canada, there is Taraknath Das, Indian revolutionary who settled in Vancouver. He founded a journal called Free Hindustan, right? Vancouver, City of Canada, G.D. Kumar. So Taraknath Das was the revolutionary that was there in Canada. He founded a journal called Free Hindustan. In San Francisco, US, there is Lala Lajpat Rai, So San Francisco, this is where we tend to little sort of ignore little things because this is almost in the end. But some questions are being asked in some mock tests, so you have to be a little careful about the names that are involved in US. In US, in different regions, one is in Seattle, and then we have San Francisco, right? In San Francisco, we have Lala Lajpat Rai. He also had this home rule league in US since. Yeah, home rule league, basically people, there are many people that were involved in it. One is we just saw Shyamji Krishna Varma 1905. There is Balagadhar Tilak and Annie Besant in the year 1916. We also see that Lala Lajpat Rai was involved with another home rule league in the US, right? Now we also have Yugantar Ashram that was started by Gaddar Party and in the US. In 1913, a revolutionary organization was formed by a group of Punjabis who settled in San Francisco. They are Sohan Singh Bhakna, Lala Hardyal, and Muhammad Barkatullah. So Lala Hardyal is actually the leader of Gaddar Party. Yugantar Ashram also we discussed, San Francisco. They founded an organization called Hind Association of America with a journal called Gadar. Then we also have Seattle. That's also in the United States. There is United India House, which was started by Tarak Nath Das and G.D. Kumar. United India House in Seattle of Tarak Nath Das and G.D. Kumar. Now let's go on to May of 1914. May of 1914. So there's an event that is associated with this. That is Koma Gatamaru event. This event, Komagatamaru is a name of a Japanese ship that was carrying 376 poor laborers that were moving from Hong Kong to Vancouver, but they did not get a docking permission. So after being denied the docking, they formed a shore committee. They set up a shore committee and decided they'll come back to India. So from Hong Kong, it started. If there's a question asking from what is the initial source or what is the initial point of journey of this Komagatamaru ship, that is not going to be Vancouver. You have to be very careful. It started from Hong Kong, right? Then it moved on to Vancouver, where it did not get docking permission, and after it being denied docking, it moves to Calcutta, that is India. In India, it forms. That's let's see the action that happens when by the time it reaches India. So, what happens is Shore Committee. There is an information that was happening that was passed that all these 376 people are coming once they form a Shore Committee. So they were actually fighting for the rights of passengers. They wanted to raise funds and have protests and all. So in order to get back to India, but this Gaddar party that was associated in the West, so they believed that the spirit of revolution is being carried towards India. This they let out as an information. Unfortunately, the officers over there also received this information, and by the time they reached, the British were successful in suppressing all the revolutionary revolution that was being brought along. So 2 months later, they were forced to sail back to India. So they saw them as a political agitators, and they arrested all the most of the people, like Baba Gurdit Singh, who was actually the leader, and they killed 19 passengers and sent all the rest to Punjab. Now let's move on to the revolutionary terrorism phase two. After that, we'll see the Gandhian phase, after which we end the Indian modern history. Right, revolutionary terrorism phase two. This is happening from 1924. Very important uh, movie that you can see to understand this part of the syllabus is Rang De Basanti. If you haven't seen, you have to watch this movie. Stop the video, go watch Rang De Basanti wherever it is streaming, then come back to this if you like. So revolutionary terrorism phase two. 1924 in Kanpur, there was a revolutionary organization that is formed, Hindustan Republic Association, that is formed by Chandrasekhar Azad, Ram Prasad Bismil, and Sachinder Sanyal. Right, 1924, Chandrasekhar Azad, Ram Prasad Bismil, and Sachinder Sanyal. So Bhagat Singh was not involved in the formation of Hindustan Republic Army. He joined later. He joined in the year 1925, and in 1926 he added the word socialist to it. Right, socialism. He does not want just to He believed that India is not just plagued with British alone, but also it is plagued with the capitalism and also the concept where all the rich and the investors or the capitalists they're working at the expense of the poor laborers. So that is also a plague that has to be, you know, dealt with after the British has have been removed from the country. So that is the brief background about the leaders that are involved in. Now let's get into the activities that Hindustan Socialist Republic Army is associated with. Association is associated with. Right. 1925, there is Kakori robbery. Kakori conspiracy case, the Kakori robbery case. For any kind of revolutionary activities, we need guns. And guns, for procuring that, we need money. So, in order to get the money, we got an information that there is a train that is coming from Lahore. It can be stopped at Kakori, and all the guns can be, all the money can necessary money can be looted from that train. So this is the plan, and that was executed, and unfortunately, in this incident, although they were successful, there were like four people that were hanged in this. One is Roshan Singh, Rajendra Lahiri, Ashfaqullah Khan, and Ram Prasad Bismil. You have to remember Ashfaqullah Khan and Ram Prasad Bismil. I think Ashfaqullah Khan, Kunal, what's his name? Right, Ram Prasad Bismil, Ashfaqullah Khan. You have to watch this movie, Rang De Basanti. And then we have, during this Kakori conspiracy case, all these were sent into gallows with a smile. All these were walking into gallows with a smile, like with a sense of achievement. And Ram Prasad Bismil, he wrote revolutionary songs in Urdu and Punjabi, right? This is about Kakori robbery case. Later on, we see that they were involved in Lahore conspiracy case. Kakori conspiracy case, although the train was coming from Lahore, we are not calling it a Lahore conspiracy case. And since it was stopped at Kakori, we are calling it as a Kakori conspiracy case. What is Lahore conspiracy case? Do we remember that Lala Lajpat Rai, during Simon Go Back protests, he was killed later by the brutality of the police. So there's one particular officer called Saunders who was actually responsible for the death of Lala Lajpat Rai. In order to avenge the death of Lala Lajpat Rai, Chandrasekhar Azad, Bhagat Singh, and Rajguru, all the three, and also some others like Jay Gopal, Sukhdeva, they were involved in the murder. They went and they took revenge by killing Saunders directly at Lahore. So the British were confused, but they initiated a trial in this regard of Saunders' murder. Next year, what happens is Central Legislative Assembly. In the year 1929, Central Legislative Assembly was happening, and there were some laws being passed, some bills being passed, like Public Safety Bill and Industrial Bill. Public Safety Bill, that is just the name itself is public safety, but that's something against public safety because they were trying to stop all the socialism and communism, the ideas that were coming from the Russia that were brewing up, that were trying to wake up people against the brutality or the norms of that were being prevalent at that time. So they wanted to stop this from reaching people. So that is the public safety bill that was brought under the garb of safeguarding people's lives. So this particular bill was opposed by Bhagat Singh. So he threw a bomb, a harmless bomb. Bhagat Singh and Bhukteshwar Dutt, BK Dutt, and he was actually alive until the year 1965. But sadly, the Congress government, had done nothing to recognize his efforts. Bhukteshwar Dutt and BK Dutt and Bhagat Singh have been involved in this incident. They came to the Central Legislative Assembly, they hurled two bombs, and there's basically a smokeless bomb. Their intention was not to hurt anybody, but just to awaken the consciousness of the people sitting in the Central Legislative Assembly. And this assembly, apparently, some people were hurt, just minor hurt with minor, what to say, minor damage was there for people. But then it is nothing intentional. They just want to bring the attention of people to this brutality that was being carried out. And after this incident, due to public pressure, one bill was taken out after this. So this fight of Bhagat Singh, the problem is this was not taken at a grassroots level, and violence they believe will not survive for long. One interesting thing we have to remember about Azad is later on in 1920s, uh, Azad, when he was taken to prison, once he wittily said, "What is your name, Azad? What is your place of birth, prison? What are your parents?" He said, "My father's name is Swadesh and mother's name is Swaraj." So this is the witty answers that Azad used to give. That's how he got the title Azad, Chandrasekhar Azad. Now let's go to Irwin. 1929. We also have to remember that the Saunders murder case, which we saw in the year 1928, which happened for avenging the death of Lala Lajpat Rai. After that, what happens in the verdict of it comes after the after the event of throwing bombs in Central Asia Assembly, and it comes in the 23rd of March of 1931, and all the three revolutionaries, Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Sukhdev, were hanged. And at the age of 24, Bhagat Singh was killed because of the Saunders murder, the verdict and the Saunders murder, and. Right. 1929, Irwin. So what happens is Irwin, um, Azad wanted to make an attempt on Irwin to kill Irwin, but it was unsuccessful, and he was shot down by the forces. So overall, we see only this one governor that was killed during his term in office. That is Lord Mayo in 1872. He was killed by a Muslim prisoner called Sher Ali. Other than that, none of the attempts were successful. I think there was one fictional thing that was successful is in RRR movie, where Ramcharan kills or Allu Sitaram Raju kills some governor. What was his name? I don't remember. Not very important, but it is a very good fictional story that is of very grand scale. If you haven't watched it, watch it. Don't stop this video. But yeah, maybe you can. Right, now let's move on to the next region, that is Bengal. Bengal region, 1930. There's in Bengal region, there are two important things that we need to remember. One is Chittagong Armory Raid, another is BBD martyrdom. With Chittagong Armory Raid, the important personality associated is Surya Sen. Right, in the 1930s, this Surya Sen was actually a school teacher. He's also fondly known as Master Da. Surya Sen was initially a school teacher, and later he was converted into a revolutionist. He actively participated in non-cooperation movement. So, although he was a revolutionist, he actually took part in non-cooperation movement. He founded an organization in Indian Republic called Indian Republic Army. Indian Republic Army was founded by Surya Sen in Chittagong in 1930, and in 1930 he was so he carried out a raid on Chittagong Armory. Armory is where all the weapons are kept. So this was raided by Surya Sen, and but unfortunately he was caught red-handed in the year 1934 by the forces. Not just Surya Sen, there was also some of other revolutionaries by his side, like Tarkeshwar Dastadar, and some women assistants also, like Kalpana Datta. Kalpana Datta and Pratilata Vadedar. Kalpana Datta and Pratilata Vadedar were involved in Pahadi European Club. They torched the Pahadi European Club, which said dogs and Indians are not allowed. So they were enraged by this, and they torched. They basically put it in flames, and for that they were given life sentence. Kalpana Datta was given life sentence. You can Google up. It's very beautiful, and of course everyone who has worked for us, who has made this the freedom that we are enjoying today, if not for their beautiful hearts and their beautiful selves to sacrifice themselves for this cause, I think none of it would that none of what we are enjoying right now would be possible. Right. Now moving on, we have some other associates of Chittagong Armory Raid, or some other associates of Suri Sen, are like Santi Ghosh and Sunidhi Chanderi. They are schoolgirls who shot the DM. Then we have Beena Das, who are like Beena Das is actually a college girl. She was receiving her degree from the governor, and she shot her. She shot her while receiving the governor. Of course, he's not died. He is not dead, but Beena Das had actually shot her. Right. Then we have BBD martyrdom. BBD stands for Binay Basu, Badal Gupta, and Dinesh Chandra Gupta, and radical organization. So all three of them belong to a radical organization called Bengal Volunteers. Right. On 18th of December 1930, they assassinated Colonel Simpson. He's actually an Inspector General of Prisons. In 1930 of 18 December, they assassinated the Colonel Simpson, and for this, they were immediately surrendered by the forces. And then Badal Gupta immediately committed suicide by taking cyanide. Dinesh Gupta was injured, and then later he was taken to prison, and then he was hanged in Alipur later in 1931, the following year. And this event took place in the Dalhousie Square in Calcutta, and now it is renamed to BBD Bagh. Right. In 1930, So all of the revolutionary movements have declined, and there was no revolutionary movements after that. A few of important nuances that you have to remember here is Indian Independence League was started by Ras Bihari Bose, Hindustan Socialist Republic Association by Bhagat Singh, or even before that, there's Chandrasekhar Azad, Indian National Army by Mohan Singh, and later Azad Hind Fauj by Subhash Chandra Bose, Indian Republic Association, Indian Republic Army by Surya Sen. So these are some nuances, founders and the organizations. That's what you have to remember. Now let's talk about Kanpur Bolshevik case. Right, Kanpur Bolshevik conspiracy case is British repression of the communists or the World War. They were influenced by the communism that was happening in the Russia. So, in order to suppress them, Kanpur Bolshevik case has come. So, the trial was there, and trial took place, and they eventually have imprisoned S.A. Dange, Muzaffar Ahmad, Narani Gupta, and Shaukat Usmani. 4 years of imprisonment was given for them. Now let's go on to the Gandhian period, which is one of the most important, if not interesting, period. And this is where most of the questions will come from. In Gandhian phase, we will discuss the various aspects like non-cooperation movement and what happened between 1912 to 1929. We'll discuss about civil disobedience movement, and then we'll discuss about the intermediary period before the war, and then we will go on to discuss about Quit India movement. After Quit India movement, we discuss about uh, uh, Azad Hind Fauj and mutiny, Royal Indian Navy mutiny, and then rise of left wing in India, and then partition of freedom and partition in India, and then we finally close this with some details about communalism in India. No, we are not touching that. That's for sociology. We'll keep that for sociology. Now let's begin with the Gandhian period. Right, 1920 to 1947 is known as the Gandhian phase, which began in the year, which is essentially the third period. We've seen that all the rural masses were involved in this period. And Gandhi was born on 2nd October 1869 in Porbandar in Gujarat, and Karamchand was his father, and Putli Bai was his mother. And we have the autobiography of Gandhi. If you haven't read, it's a very interesting book, very interesting indeed, very interesting. So you have to read it. And 1894, he founded an organization in Africa called Natal Indian Congress to fight the discrimination against the Indians in South Africa. And right, Natal Indian Congress, 1894. It is not found in India; it is found in South Africa. Then 1903, he founded a journal called Indian Opinion. Indian Opinion is a journal started by Gandhi, not Op India. Op India is probably the exact opposite. But Indian Opinion was started by Mahatma Gandhi, 1903. 1906, he started the first Satyagraha. And 1909, he wrote a book called Hind Swaraj. Right, 1906 is his first Satyagraha. 1909, he wrote a book called Hind Swaraj. 1983 to 1915, he lived in Africa. Then after 22 years, he returned to India to his residence called Sabarmati Ashram in the year 1916. So in South Africa, residence of Gandhi was called Tolstoy Farm, right? And in between 1916 to 1933, he lived in Sabarmati Ashram, and he left Sabarmati during civil disobedience movement, and he took an oath that he'll return only after achieving independence, and which he actually did. Gandhiji was very good in affirmations, perhaps. So then we have Navjeevan were Gujarati newspapers by Gandhi. This is some information. Navjeevan is Gujarati newspapers by Gandhi. He has another residence called Sevagram in Wardha of Maharashtra, and that's where he lived here in like Jamnalal Bajaj's residence. Gandhi has some rich friends also who were a little angry with him with the non-cooperation movement because Gandhi was essentially spoiling his business, their business. So the three important movements that Gandhi took up the leadership were Champaran, Ahmedabad, and Kedah. You can remember the order of CAK. First Champaran, then comes Ahmedabad, and then comes Kedah. That's the chronology. आप chronology समझ लीजिए. Then we have non-cooperation movement. Let's begin with non-cooperation movement. 1922 to 1920, 1920 to 1922. That's when the non-cooperation movement essentially happened, and it started in August of 1920. August of 1920. Most of the things in our independence happened with August, related to August. And in August of 1922, it started and it ended in the February of 1922. Right. Three important aspects of this moment are circumstances that led to the moment. We have to understand the course of the moment, and then suspension of the moment. How it started, what are the events, and how it ended. How it started and why it started. There are four factors. Roja Monkey. So Rowlatt Act, Jallianwala Bagh, Montagu Chelmsford reforms, and Khilafat movement. Let's start with the Rowlatt Act. Rowlatt Act that happened in February 1990. It's also called. It's technically called as Anarchical Revolutionary Crimes Act. It's based on the recommendation of Rowlatt Sidney of Sedition Commission of 1918. So it gave enormous and extraordinary powers to the police. It's like censorship of press is there. They can detain. They can detent. It gave them the permissions for detention of anybody without trail. Right. I need to understand the verb form of detention and to know the sound. Right. Yeah. So we have Satyagraha Sabha. So Gandhiji took up a movement, huge movement against this Rowlatt Act, uh, and he called it as an organization Satyagraha Sabha. Satyagraha Sabha was against Rowlatt Act. This could be a possible question. Satyagraha Sabha was taken up by Gandhi against which movement? This is against Rowlatt Act, right? Then we have the second factor which caused non-cooperation movement is Jallianwala Bagh incident. So on 13th of April 1919, Amritsar is where this started. This event happened. Before that, 3 days before that, like on 10th April, what happened is two senior Congress leaders were arrested. One is Satyapal and Saifuddin Kichlu. So they were arrested, and then Congress party leaders were disappointed with the arrest. So they were holding meetings in this Jallianwala Bagh, which is actually a park. So that's where they were holding protests. But the governor of Punjab at that time, Michael O'Dyer, was actually very uh, angry because of these protests. The protests were actually happening because of the arrests, and these arrests happened because of there's no warrant that was shown, and because of, in fact, that is indirectly related to Rowlatt Act only. Then what happened is this governor of Punjab at that time, Michael O'Dyer, he passed a martial law, which means people should not form any groups and no public meetings are allowed. Even then, the Congress party, like they deliberately violated the martial law, and more people started coming in, like around 20,000 people almost, like reached the Jallianwala Bagh. And it is at this point that the governor, that is Michael O'Dyer, has deployed brigadier rank officer, that is General Dyer, and who had actually permitted open fire, and like 1,500 rounds were fired. 1,500 rounds were fired, and there was lots of casualties. Uh, Rabindranath Tagore gave away his knighthood in protest of this event, and 1919 British appointed a Hunters Committee. This Hunters Committee is not the Hunters Committee that we see with regard to the government educational policies of the British. That came during the time of Hunters Committees, during the time of Hunters Committees, during the time of Lord Ripon, right? No. So this is different Hunters Committee. 1919, British appointed Hunters Committee to study about Jallianwala Bagh incident, and the Hunters Committee praised General Dyer instead of punishing him. They actually praised him for his sincerity because apparently he just implemented the martial law very effectively. But the Congress Party was very disappointed. Point to be noted: in 1940, Sardar Udham Singh, he went to London and he killed Dyer. Not unfortunately, not the General Dyer. He found Michael Dyer, that is the governor at that point. So 20 years later, he went and killed him. But of course, Sardar was later hanged. There's a movie about it. You can watch it. Then we have the third factor that contributed to the non-cooperation movement is Montagu Chelmsford Act. Montagu Chelmsford Act is basically self-rule act. Montagu Chelmsford, right? Self-rule act. They wanted to give self-rule act. They wanted to give self-rule to us, that which was major demand of Swadeshi movement. They also wanted to give us responsible government, that is, which was given, which was mentioned as a part of August Declaration. That's when Tilak and Annie Besant had actually backed out from the Swaraj movement or home rule movement. The act formed a new system called diarchy. So they wanted to give this only in the provinces, and basically they just played out a smart game by taking all the revenue generating departments under the British and all the revenue money spending departments they given to Indians, uh, which they called it as transfer department, like education, health, cooperatives, and local bodies. You remember, if if you remember, there's a point that we discussed in Sadler's Commission, where there's a grant of 5 lakhs that is to be spent every year. That was being spent until this 1919. After that, they washed their hands. So because they transferred this department to Indians, so that's now on Indians' burden. So education was something that they felt that is a burden on their pocket, so they transferred it to us. And all the departments that were generating money, like the finance, revenue, home, defense, all these were like kept as with them, like reserved with them. So British people are known as ministers and councillors. Like the British heads of these portfolios are known as councillors. Indian were called as ministers. All these money spending departments were given to Indians. So Montesquieu said, "Here, we gave you the self rule. All that you asked, this is all you asked, and therefore the councillors were responsible for the right." They mentioned that the councillors, like whoever is in the heads of the reserve departments, that is by the British, held by the British, they're responsible to the governors, but not responsible to the legislatures. So this is not something that was originally agreed upon, because responsible government is basically the executive should be responsible to the legislature, but here executive is responsible only to the governor general, not to the legislature. Right. So the anarchy rule was opposed. That's why it was opposed by Congress Party, and they demanded for a real self rule, and not something like where they exploit us in the garb of self rule. And finally, we have fourth factor which contributed to an cooperation movement, that is Khilafat movement. It is connected to the Khalifa. In order to save Khalifa, it's the Sultan of Turkey, who's known as ex officio Khalifa. He's involved. He's one of the parties that involved in the World War One, and Germany group, uh, he's a party with the Axis groups, Germany group, and England occupied Turkey, and Sultan was arrested, and Khalifa was imprisoned. So this movement was started in India by Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali, the Ali brothers, Hazrat Mohani Content. Okay, right. So these Ali brothers formed an organization called All India Khilafat Conference, and in fact, they invited Gandhi to be the president, and Gandhi actually gave consent. So, what were the demands that were put forth by Gandhi before launching this non-cooperation movement? Is like Khilafat should be released, and government should, like, with respect to Khilafat movement, Khalifa should be released, and government should not worry about. That's what Gandhi said regarding this Khalifa, right? But speaking broadly about the non-cooperation movement, how did the course of the movement happen? 1920 Congress passed a special session at Lahore, right? Lahore session. That's where the non-cooperation movement was passed. Resolution was passed. President of this session, 1920 session, was Lala Lajpat Rai. 1920 was also important because of another reason. 1920, there's All India Social no, AITUC that was headed by again Lala Lajpat Rai. Lala Lajpat Rai was very active in 1920. Then we have that's where they decided to stop or boycott everything, right? Boycott of educational institutions. Starting from boycott educational movement institutions, this is again the same strategy that was followed during the Swadeshi movement under the leadership of extremists in 1905, and that's where they again. Let's forget that. Let's focus on Gandhian phase. Swadeshi educational institutions were being promoted, and boycott of British educational institutions. So there were 9,000 students, 90,000 students, and 800 educational institutions from primary to higher college and university was being set up, which are Swadeshi in nature. And then there's boycott of British goods. All the goods, particularly British textiles, were boycotted, and they're in fact brought onto the road and burnt. Charaka was seen as a symbol of patriotism by Gandhi. So it was actually popularized after Vijayawada session of 1921. Right? 20 lakh charkas were distributed. So Gandhi actually raised a fund called Tilak Swaraj Fund. So there's a question saying Tilak Swaraj Fund is associated with which movement? It is non-cooperation movement. And that's where Gandhi raised the money. 20 lakh charkas were made, and they were distributed to Indians in order to make their own goods, and they made their own textiles. Right, 7 rupees of charka has swept the entire textile industry of Britain. That's the master stroke of Gandhi. And next, third important factor which was third important event in the course of non-cooperation movement is boycott of courts of law. So whoever lawyers were there, they stopped getting into law. Right. Civil courts should be implemented. British courts were to be replaced with panchayat, local village heads, and all. So important leaders who left their legal provision in this uh, event are like Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Das, C.R. Das. There is Motilal Nehru, father of Jawaharlal Nehru. There is C. Rajagopalachari, or Rajaji as we call it. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Iron Man of India. There's Tanguturi Prakasam Pantulu. There is right. So all these were the important lawyers who have quit their profession because they wanted to replace the British courts with panchayats and local village things, right? But civil courts were actually happening at the time, right? Then we another fourth point is boycott of legislatures. All the members of Congress Party, either provincial or central, have given the resignation, and 1920 general elections were boycotted by Congress Party. Uh, Right. So they wanted to quit the legislatures as well. So provincial or central, they wanted to resign, and they boycotted. General elections were also boycotted by the Congress Party. Then next is boycott of titles. We already saw when the partition of Bengal was happening. Rabindranath Tagore had no, not partition of Bengal. Sorry, when the Jallianwala Bagh incident happened, Rabindranath Tagore had returned his knighthood title. Now Gandhi, what happened? What he did is, as part of his basically, he copied Rabindranath Tagore's uh, gesture. And now, during the national non-cooperation movement, Gandhi also returned his Kaisari Hind title that he got from the British when he was surfing in South Africa. Then there's boycott of Prince of Wales, boycott of the visit of Prince of Wales. Prince of Wales was visiting India. Probably he thought people would warm up to him and wish him and greet him and all that. But here, deliberately, people were instructed to close all their doors whenever he visited their streets. So he was humiliated in this way. So that sends a signal that we are not happy with their rule, and this we are not going to cooperate with them. That is why we are calling it as non-cooperation movement. Next, let's go why this movement was suspended on 5th of September 1922. This is a very important date. We have to remember the 5th of September 1922. An event took place in the village called Chauri Chaura of Gorakhpur district, Uttar Pradesh. As part of this movement, an angry mob attacked the jail, and 22 policemen were burnt alive. They lynched. They lynched them, and Bardoli resolution was passed. In this protest, like Gandhiji suspended the non-cooperation movement at Bardoli. In fact, like Communist Party started. So Bardoli resolution is something that we have to remember. Lahore session of 1920 is where a non-cooperation movement was approved. Bardoli resolution 1922 is where they have decided to stop the non-cooperation movement. So everyone started scolding, criticizing Mahatma Gandhi. M.N. Roy criticized Gandhi. C.R. Das, Motilal Nehru, and Subhash Chandra Bose condemned Gandhi. They were angry why Gandhi was wanted to stop this for just a simple reason, because somewhere in a village in Gorakhpur there's some violence. But this actually is known as Gandhi actually knows that any movement cannot be prolonged for a long time. There should be a pause in between, and then again there will be a renewed force with which people will participate. Right. This is a strategy that Gandhi followed. Right. We have to remember that during non-cooperation movement, there's another movement that was running parallelly, or which also happened to be Akali movement. Akali movement was happening, which is part of non-cooperation only, to free Gurudwaras from corrupt Mahanta. That was also part of non-cooperation, as some say. We should also remember that there is another non-cooperation movement which is happening as an anti-non-cooperation movement, which is against the non-cooperation movement, that is happening exactly the same time in 1920. It is started by all the big businessmen, all the rich Gandhi's friends. They were seeing all these non-cooperation movement as a obstruction, or as something, as a hurdle to their business. So the important founders of this movement, anti-non-cooperation movement, are Jamnalal, Dwarkadas, Purushottam Das, Thakurdas, Kawashji Jahangir, Firozshah Seth, Setna, and Setalwad. All these are rich people of probably Gujarat and Maharashtra. So they felt that all the movement would discourage the labor strikes, would encourage lots of labor strikes, which would in turn violent, and that's how that happened in the previous occasion. At Maharashtra region, Gandhi's acceptance was actually quite low, and Tilak was were more prominent in that. So that's also one of the incidents. Overall, if we have to discuss, we have to conclude about non-cooperation movement. Aitchison, during that time, Aitchison, we discussed about Aitchison's civil. When we were discussing about civil service reforms, Aitchison's committee we discussed during this period of time, right? This is the same Aitchison. He remarked that in this instance, we could not play off the Mohammedans against the Hindus. This is one place where we couldn't do Hindu-Muslim. This is what Aitchison had remarked. Sadly, now we are doing lots of Hindu-Muslim. 1921, there's another movement that was happening parallelly called Eka movement. It's an offshoot of non-cooperation movement only. That happened in 1921. That's where peasants were to pay only recorded rent on time, and this was being taken. This was being taken up by the Madari Parsi and other low caste leaders. It's an offshoot. Eka movement is a Madari offshoot of non-cooperation movement. It is being taken up by Madari Parsi and other low caste leaders, right? Then we have some important events that were happening between 1922 to 1928. We'll quickly revise these. These go by the acronym SSNJL. Formation of Swaraj Party, Simon Commission, Jawaharlal Nehru's report, and Nehru report, Jinnah, not Jawaharlal Nehru, Motilal Nehru, Nehru report, Jinnah, and then there is Lahore session, SSNJL. Let's begin with Swaraj Party. Important events between 1922 to 1928. The period between these years, that is 8 years, are very important because lots of activities took place. One is formation of Swaraj Party. Due to Gandhi's non-cooperation withdrawal, like people were a little pissed, they were a little disappointed with it. So Bardoli resolution was formed. Bardoli resolution, that's where Gandhi has withdrawn the non-cooperation movement. Immediately, some section or a section of Congress party, they have announced that they'll form something called a Swaraj Party within the Congress party. And party's president is going to be C.R. Das, and Motilal Nehru is going to be the general secretary. So 1922, there's a session that was held in Gaya, Bihar, both Gaya. That's where they were enlightened. You can remember like that. They got enlightened. Like Gandhi said, they were not dependent on Gandhi anymore. They thought they should do something on their own. That's how they got enlightened in Gaya, 1922. C.R. Das has presided this, and general secretary is Motilal Nehru. So they split as anti-changes and pro-changes. Anti-changes are Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, C.R. Das. Anti-changes are Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, C.R. Das, and Rajendra Prasad. This party, like they strongly advocated not to conduct elections or boycott elections. Right? So they said let's boycott the elections, which was the call that came in non-cooperation movement was to boycott the elections. They said let's continue the boycott even if non-cooperation movement had come to a halt. But pro-changes group, that is the revolutionaries that were very angry at that time, that is C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru, who were scolding Gandhi, who were criticizing Gandhi for stopping non-cooperation movement. They said no, let's contest the elections and carry out end-government policy. So Congress party took this decision to democracy. Majority of the anti-changes and majority were anti-changes, and the elections were boycotted, right? But C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru felt that they should still contest the election. So they came out of Congress party. They started something called Congress Khilafat Swaraj Party. It is not something separate from Congress party. We have to remember the beauty is that they are still in Congress party, and they started this as an integral part of Congress party. This is Congress Khilafat Swaraj Party. We have to remember there's another group inside this called mid-responsivists. There's a group that spread from within Swaraj Party. There's Swaraj Party who actually wanted to take part in the elections, to contest the elections. But inside them, there's another group called mid-responsivists, which actually cooperated British. They came out in order to fight against British, but they actually cooperated British. This included Madan Mohan Malviya, Lala Lajpat Rai, and N.C. Kelkar. Lala Lajpat Rai, I didn't expect this. Madan Mohan Malviya, okay, he was also involved in social religious reform and anti-social religious also reform, also anti-reform movements also. N.C. Kelkar, and there is they were actually against Motilal Nehru. Success and failure of Swaraj Party. Swaraj Party, which actually went ahead with taking part in elections, They actually performed very well in the general elections. And Swarajist by name Vittal J. Patel was elected as the president of the Central Legislative Assembly. And they defeated the Public Safety Bill of 1928, and they deported the foreigners. Public Safety Bill, that's what we were talking about, the socialists and the influence of socialists and communism. So that bill was defeated here by the work of Swarajas. They also carried environment policy. They carried a big propaganda against the diarchy, and even outside the legislature, also they led the peasant movement. They fought against untouchability. They brought some harmony against Hindus and Muslims. We should also remember that there's another committee in 1924. British has appointed Muddiman Committee to have a look into the diarchy work, right? Uh, the head is Muddiman, Alexander Muddiman, and in order to find the defects of 1919 Act, right? So it is nothing but a four-member Indian committee, and it is no, there's a lot of members in that committee, but there are four Indians that are involved in the committee that are there, and we have to remember the names: Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Sir Taibuddin Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Tej Bahadur Sapru, Sivaswamy Iyer, and R.P. Paranjip. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Sivaswamy Iyer, R.P. Paranjip, and Tej Bahadur Sapru. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Tej Bahadur Sapru, Sivaswamy Iyer, and R.P. Paranjip. So these are the Indian members that were in the committee of Mudiman, right? In 1925, C.R. Das died, and thereafter the internal conflicts and rivalry took place within the party of Swaraj Party, and then responsivists. That's what we were discussing, right? Mid-responsivists. That's what happened in the mid 1920s. So there's split from Swaraj Party. As a result, in 1926 election, Swaraj Party washed out, so they couldn't perform well. Now, let's go to the second factor. That is another thing that happened here is Simon Commission, right? Simon Commission was considered between 1927 to 1928. Before we get into this, let's see some important factors that we have to remember regarding the states. There is something called Praja Mandals that is happening in the provinces of Mysore, Hyderabad, Baroda, and Kathiawar. They wanted to take part in All India States People Conference. What is this All India States People Conference? It is nothing but it's an organization that is independent of Congress. It is not associated with Congress. All India States People Conference, right? So all states want to come together and join their abilities and forces. It's not associated with Congress. It's independent organization. However, Jawaharlal Nehru was president between 1939 to 1946. Matlab Nehru's, they want to get into some kind of a presidency. They want to lead all the time. 1939 to 1946, Jawaharlal Nehru remained its president. Who are its members? All India States People Conference, Balwantrai Mehta, Manilal Kottar, and G.R. Abhyankar. Balwantrai Mehta, Manilal Kottar, and G.R. Abhyankar. Jawaharlal Nehru passed the resolution endorsing the demands of All India States People Conference. Right. So this was headquartered in Bombay, and there are like some Prajamandals that were we saw in provinces like Mysore, Hyderabad, Baroda, and Kathiawar. They are also like part of All India States People Conference, and they had a demands like all the princely states should also be brought under the constitutional limits. That is one of the demands of All India States People Conference, and this was also discussed with the Indian States Commission, which is also known as Butler Commission, which was headed by Harcourt Butler. He wanted to study the relation between the center and the states, provinces, center and the provinces, and in order to bring this sort of a relation between the state nature of states and the paramount power. Second committee. So far we read about the States Committee, which is also known as Butler Committee. Now we talk about the Statutory Committee, which is also known as the Simon Committee. Where the Simon Commission recommends the no change in the central executive. Chairman is John Simon. It was considered to study the 1919 Act, a review of diarchy, and 1919 Act should be changed. Right, not a single member from India. And 1927. So there was not a single member from this committee that is an Indian. One chairperson and one chairman and six persons. So that's like seven people, but all are whites, and that's why we were not supported. We were not supporting them. We were not willing to listen to them because they are going to decide whether 1919 Act was good for us or not. To study the 1919 Act. So we have to remember, before this committee arrived in India, there's also Buddhiman committee that arrived before that. And that had four members who were there: Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Tej Bahadur Sapru, Shivaswamy Iyer, and R.V. Paranjit. Now this committee, but unlike the previous Buddhiman committee, this Indian Statutory Committee or the Simon Commission had no Indians in it. That's why we protested. So 1927 December, Indian National Congress was held at Madras. Right, the president is M.A. Ansari. And in this session, Simon boycott resolution took place. Simon go back protest took place. So whenever you come to Chennai, there's always go back protest that is happening here. Then Simon go back protest. Simon go back. They showed black flags, and at different parts of the country, different sorts of violent protests broke out. Like in Lahore, the moment was very intense, and Lala Lajpat Rai was a leader, and railway stations were blocked, and Lala Lajpat Rai was severely injured, especially by this one particular police officer. How can we forget his name? Saunders, who actually killed Lala Lajpat Rai with heavy blows. And he actually made a remark that every blow on his body would become a nail on the coffin of the British Empire, and which actually eventually did. So the movement was success in Lahore. It was a huge success in Lahore. And then later, the movement in Lucknow was led by Jawaharlal Nehru. There, he was also badly hurt and hospitalized. In Madras, it was led by Tanguturi Prakasam Pantulu. He also known as Andhra Keshari. He was a great leader in the anti-Simon protests. In spite of the protests, like Simon actually did the job, because sadly, unfortunately, the Justice Party, or the which is now modified version of DMK, supported the Simon Commission, and the report was submitted. Right. Then there's the British government took some consultations and discussions on this, and then the Parliament. So just to avoid the problems, they showed a concern. They gave a sort of a depiction, or they gave a semblance of a understanding that they had for people's concerns. Then we go on to talk about the roundtable conference. So they decided to conduct roundtable conference in order to have more deliberations on this. So British government was ready to change the provisions that were there in the act. So basically, everything was surrounding that one act. One act that we were talking about is 19. The 1919 Act. 1919 Act came because of that Buddhiman committee came. Then against the statutory Indian Statutory Commission, or the Simon Commission, has come, and because of that, the three roundtable conferences have come, and after that, the partition came. Right. Next, we speak about the Nehru Report. Right. Nehru Report happened because there was an all-party meeting that happened in Delhi and Calcutta, which includes Tej Bahadur Sapru and Subhash Chandra Bose as well. And at that time, there was a Conservative Party that was in power. There are two different parties in England: Conservative Party and the Labour Party. Conservative Party is more like the right-leaning party, which was helmed by Winston Churchill and Lithgow and all those. And then there is Labour Party, which was headed by Stafford Cripps. This is the same guy who comes as ambassador for Cripps Mission. So questions were raised by Labour Party. Labour Party was in opposition in England. So what happened is, Birkenhead was the Conservative Party, head of the Conservative Party. He was facing a lot of heat. Why couldn't they include 1-2 members? What is wrong if they include one person? So they agreed, coming under the pressure of the opposition, that is the Labour Party. The Conservative Party agreed that, okay, let them form a constitution. Let's see if they can form on their own. And this was almost like a challenge for the Congress Party. So all this happened just prior to 1928. And in February of 1928, a meeting was held and a subcommittee was formed, all-party committee, and Motilal Nehru was president, of course, and Nehru Report was formed. So this is almost like a challenge that is accepted. They wanted to form a rule, or sort of a proto-constitution for themselves. So they came up with some important points. These could be asked in the exam, like dominion status. Government should act in aid and advice of the council. Dominion status should be given. Government should act in aid and advice of the council, and there should be 19 fundamental rights. 19 fundamental rights. Bicameral legislature should be there. A federation with strong center should be there. Residuary power should be given to the center. Federation with a strong center. So center, they wanted to give more powers, right? All the residuary powers, they're not given to the provinces, they're given to the center. Bicameral legislature, and Muslims should be given reservations in the provincial legislatures in those provinces in which they are a minority in proportion to the population, right? So Muslims should be given reservations in provincial legislatures only in those provinces, only in such provinces where they are a minority, right? Not in every province, only in such provinces in which they are a minority. Like there's a Madras province, if there is like they are in minority, then you give them reservation. Otherwise, you don't have to give them reservation. This is the point that was put forward by Nehru, right? But Jinnah had other plans. Like he opposed this Nehru report. He said, "Why make the center as strong? Let's make the provinces strong. Let's give all the residuary powers to provinces." Then he said Muslim reservations should be given not just in provinces where they are minority. Let's give it to all the provinces. He also said that one third of the seats should be reserved to the Muslims. One third of the seats should be reserved to the Muslims in the Central Legislative Assembly. This point was not at all given by Nehru. All these three amendments were, refused, and then this Nehru report was failed. Finally, Jinnah gave some points called 14 points by Jinnah that came in the subsequent year 1929. This is an alternative to the Nehru report. It was also a failure, of course, for obvious reasons. It had two different heads under which the demands were put forth by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. One is federal set of provisions, and another is Muslim provisions. Federal provisions, these include like complete autonomy should be given to provinces. That is the same opposition that is put to the Nehru report. Then residuary powers should be given to provinces. Oh God. Then no constitutional amendment should happen without the consent of the provinces. So everything he wants it to revolve around the provinces. Provinces without the consent of provinces, no central amendment can happen. Right? Such a thinking. I mean, he wanted to make the provinces such a great force that's what we have right now, right? Half of the state should if there is a very important decision is to be taken, not just the central, but half of the legislatures also have to accede to that decision. That is what is the proto form of that is what he's mentioning it here in the federal provisions of this 14 points. Next, we have Muslim other demands that are related to the Muslim head, such as complete religious freedom. Next, there is complete protection to Muslims, minorities, but basically he meant Muslims. And then there is one third of reservation to Muslims in the Central Legislative Assembly, the same that we have in the previous opposition to the Nehru's. Then we have one third reservation to Muslims in the Central Cabinet as well, not just the Central Legislative Assembly, Central Cabinet also one third reservation should be given. Then Muslim reservations should be given in all provinces in proportion to their population. So if there is less population, you give more reservations. There's more population, you give reservations, but you have to give reservations in all provinces. That's the point that he's trying to make. Then there should be proper representation of Muslims in the public services. In public services also, you give representation or reservation to Muslims, is what he's asking. Finally, separation of Sindh region from Bombay. Bombay and Sindh should be separated. Now we are done with Jinnah's policy, Jinnah's 14 points. Now let's go to the final part. Before we discuss civil disobedience movement, this is going to be Lahore session. Lahore session took place in the year 1929 in December. It was presided by Jawaharlal Nehru. The important resolutions by Congress party that were formed are Purna Swaraj resolution and Purna Swaraj. There's one popular song that is going on. All right, Purna Swaraj. Congress party declared complete independence resolution. Congress party decided that on 26th of January 1930 is going to be the Independence Day. Of course, we did not get independence at that time, but it's more like an affirmation. You have to imagine the present what you want in the future. So we decided that 26th of January 1930, we already got independence, and that later on, of course, we have remembered this day later on. That is what we are calling it as a Republic Day. On 26th of November 1949, our constitution came into independence. Constitution was completed. And the subsequent year, 26th of January 1950, we called the very same day, historic day, as Republic Day. Every year we mark it as the day the Constitution came into picture. We waited until 26th January. We waited for those 2 months because that is an important day in our history. We marked that day's independence in the year 1930. Right. Next, third point is that on 31st of December 1929, that is almost the New Year Day, right? 31st of December 1929, Congress members while the Congress session was still on, the party members they hoisted the national flag officially for the first time. For the first time, our Indian flag was hoisted on 31st of December 1929 um, to welcome the new year. And this was done by Jawaharlal Nehru and on the banks of river Ravi River. Right. Then Pingali Venkaiah was a person who was the man behind this design of the national flag. And he designed this at the request of Mahatma Gandhi in 1921. So it was designed by Congress Party, but finally it was hoisted. So it was designed much earlier, 1921, but it was hoisted for the first time in 1929 only. So we know the colors that were involved in it: sacrifice, peace, and prosperity. It's a secular country, so all the colors were included. In the Congress Party, decided to boycott the Roundtable Conference to be held in London. So this is also one of the provisions that they wanted to pass in the Lahore session of 1929. Congress Party did not want to take part in this Roundtable Conference. Why was the Roundtable Conference being held? Because the Simon Commission was all not really a fail, not really a success. They want to discuss more about 1919 Act and how India can be governed. And further, they wanted to call representatives from India to hold a roundtable conference in London. And Congress Party actually wanted to boycott it, and they know that Congress Party matters to the British when it comes to the administration or the decisions that are being taken. So they know that if they could hold them to their power by not appearing or by boycotting, they can lay their demands in a more powerful position. So that's why roundtable conferences was boycotted. And then next fifth point that is important with regards to this Lahore session is that civil disobedience resolution was passed by Mahatma Gandhi. So Mahatma Gandhi asked people. Mahatma Gandhi was asked to lead this movement, civil disobedience movement. Originally, civil disobedience was a concept that was discovered or propagated by Henry David Thoreau in America. He wrote that the title of civil disobedience, the very book that he wrote, has the title of civil disobedience. And basically, what this concept says is any unjust law is no law at all, so it can be disobeyed. And here when we're talking about civil law, it's not like criminal laws. It's just a civil law, which means that's why we are calling it a civil disobedience. It's not criminal disobedience movement. It's a civil disobedience movement. Whatever laws that they're applying on a civil, you know, arena or whatever you call that, all the civil related laws, right, that were being broken, and therefore it is called as a civil disobedience movement. Here we have to note another an act that has come in place at this point of time is 1929 Trades Dispute Act. It was enacted by the British to suppress the voice of trade unions. It's not actually meant. It was ideally propagated in the garb of facilitating sort of a dialogue between the workers, employees, and the workmen and the industrialists or the capitalists, but it is actually meant to suppress the voice of trade unions. We also have another important thing that is happening in 1929 is Delhi Manifesto. Lord Irwin earlier he passed a Deepavali resolution or Deepavali circular, Deepavali declaration that happened in October of 1929 when Lord Irwin said he is going to give the Dominion status. He said he will think about giving the Dominion status, or that is when that is being processed or so. Then Delhi Manifesto of 1929, a month later, was formed, in which Lord Irwin was issued by all the prominent national leaders, saying that not to discuss when the Dominion status should be granted, but formulate a scheme for its implementation. They're saying, don't talk about what you're going to do, just do it. Nike, just do it. Next, we are going to the civil disobedience movement. Civil disobedience movement took place in two phases. Phase 1, 1930 to 1931, and phase 2 is 1932 to 1933. So, inception of civil disobedience movement is in this moment, in the month of February 1930, Congress Working Committee was held at Sabarmati Ashram, right, in Ahmedabad. Sabarmati Ashram, February of 1930. Congress Working Committee was held. A session of Congress Working Committee was held at Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad, and they decided to break the salt laws. because salt production, if it is permitted in India, then the Liverpool industry that was there in England, salt industry in England, it is going to be collapsed because it is totally based on Indian market. Whatever salt they are manufacturing it, they are our Indian market, our Indian population is the market for them. So they knew that when once we start making our own salt, then their market is going to be collapsed, and they don't want that to happen. Therefore, there's a salt law that was in place, and we decided to break the civil law, the salt law. So the problem is we cannot call this salt satyagraha because we cannot call this as a nationwide movement. It has its own limitations because people all Indians cannot take part in it. There's some limitations because salt is not available everywhere. So women also wanted to join, and Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay requested Gandhi to allow women's participation, and Gandhi said, "Okay, you shall take a protest against liquor, and because that also comes under the civil." We also have some other forms of social discrimination at that time. So before launching this civil disobedience movement, Gandhi had placed some demands before Vice Roy Irwin. To be precise, there were 11 demands. Important ones were like reduction of 50% in the land revenues and 50% cut down in the defense and military expenditure, protection of native industries, and freeing of production of salts, and ban on intoxicating drinks or toxic drinks, and reserving the shipping industry to Indians because that's again revenue generation. All the revenue generation departments were taken up by the British under the diarchy, basically for discussing which we asked for a roundtable conference. I mean, they are conducting a roundtable conference, and against which we are doing a civil disobedience movement. Launching of civil disobedience movement was very effective because on 12th March of 1930, Gandhi had selected 78 satyagrahis. He took a march, a Dandi march from Sabarmati Ashram, and he took 25 days to reach there. And it was on 6th of April 1930 where he officially declared and launched the Dandi Satyagraha. On 12th March to 6th of April 1930, he carried out the Dandi March. Few important Satyagraha movements in India are like in Tamil Nadu, Tanjore Coast, from Tiruchirappalli to Vedaranyam, C. Rajagopalachari, Rajaji had led the march. In Kerala, Pioneer Satyagraha, it was held by K. Kellappan. In Andhra Coast, in Machilipatnam Coast, it was led by Konda Venkatapaya, and also there were some Sibirams that were held here in military style campaign. In Solapur, it was led by Shankar Shiv Dhare. Shankar Shiv Dhare in Solapur. Solapur Shankar Shiv Dhare. It's less popular, but you have to keep in mind Solapur Shankar Shiv Dhare, SSS, right? And then Gujarat Coast, Dasara Satyagraha, it was led by Sarojini Naidu. In Assam Coast, from Sylhet to Noakhali, Bengal Coast, also there was one this thing carried out. There was a South Satyagraha that was carried out, right? Here, before we get into Peshawar, the movement was led by Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, who also, let's to discuss a little more about Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan. He also had held this organization. He also led this organization called Khuda-i Khidmatgars. It's also known as Red Shirt organizations, and also known as Servants of God. He's also popularly known as Frontier Gandhi because he was there at the boundary. And before we go on to discuss about the roundtable conferences, let us see a little more about Sarojini Naidu, who was born on February 13th of I don't know which year, but February 13th is a very important day. Great people were born on that day. So few important points on Sarojini Naidu. Based on she was born in Bengali family, but in Hyderabad probably, and her father is Agoranath Chattopadhyay, and he is the first principal of Nizam, and he established a college in 1887. I'm sorry. So we go on to describe the books written by Srimati Sarojini Naidu. They are Broken Wings, and then there is Golden Threshold. Golden Threshold is actually the name of her residence, and right. So Broken Wing and Golden Threshold are the books written by Sarojini Naidu. Right. It's raining. She's also a good singer, and she's also called the Nightingale of India. And politically, if we see her career, she's like the first woman president of Indian Congress, Indian National Congress. She's not the first woman president. She's the first Indian woman of Indian National Congress, because earlier we know that Annie Besant has also held the post in the year 1917. And after achieving her independence, she worked as a governor in Uttar Pradesh. Right now, let's go on to the three roundtable conference. One, two, three, very quickly. Three roundtable conference, number 1930 to 1931, first roundtable conference. It was headed by PM Ramsay MacDonald, and few important delegates in this are from the Muslim League side. We have Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Ada Khan, Muhammad Shafi, and Muhammad Ali. From the All India Liberal Federation, we have 1970. There is Surendranath Banerjee, who was a moderate who led this partition, but who led anti-partition movement, but he was failed. Surendranath Banerjee, right? He came all the way. He was a moderate. He was there until this independence time. That's like a really long time, and he actually started this new party called All India Liberal Federation after he quit the Congress party, and he's a representative of that party. And there are several other delegates of this party like Sivanand Sastri, C.Y. Chintamani, and Tej Bahadur Sapru. When we talk about Tej Bahadur Sapru, we have to remember that he's part of Muddiman Committee, which also came as an inquiry into the 1999. Shivananda Sastri is actually part of Sadharana Brahmo Samaj. We also saw the second split which happened, right? Brahmo Samaj, Shivananda Sastri. Then, right. Then we have another important delegation of Hindu Mahasabha, which was represented by M.R. Jayakar. We have Ambedkar, who is representing the Dalits in this first roundtable conference. There are 16 delegates from princely states as well. Few important of them are Mirza Ismail, who represented Wadiyars of Mysore, and Akbar Haidari, who represented Nizam of Hyderabad region. And there are like other 16 delegates from England as well, the British. And Ramsay MacDonald were actually very unhappy because all these people that we have seen, right, delegates like Muslim League, All India Liberal Federation, Hindu Mahasabha, Ambedkar, and the princely states, none of them are very important stakeholders because the Congress party is not there. And so he abruptly entered the first roundtable conference, and he announced the second roundtable conference in the very same year. First roundtable conference was November to January of 1931, right? Second roundtable conference was announced in 1931 itself. So second roundtable conference, the next year, the September of 1931, Irwin, as a backdrop to the second roundtable conference, Lord Irwin was there. So he was given the responsibility to send Gandhi to the roundtable conference, because of which this Gandhi-Irwin Pact came in place, also known as Delhi Pact, which happened on 5th of March 1931. So this pact facilitated two members, M.R. Jayakar and Tej Bahadur Sapru. So both these people, M.R. Jayakar from Hindu Mahasabha and Tej Bahadur Sapru from All India Liberal Federation, probably they went to and spoke to Gandhi and said, Gandhi, let's go talk to Irwin. He has something to say to you. And Gandhi was like, okay, let's put some demands. Let's put forth some demands. If he agrees, then okay, well, fine. Congress party is going to represent itself in the second roundtable conference. So this is what happened, and what were the demands of Gandhi? So by this time, Gandhi, there were like 1 lakh satyagrahis in prison at that time, and Gandhi asked all of them to be released. And there is confiscation of property. All the property that was confiscated at that time, it has to be given back, and all the restrictions that were put on salt production had to be lifted. And these were the demands that were put forward, and by Gandhi, and in response, actually, Irwin also put forward two other demands of his. One, suspend the movement. What movement? Civil disobedience movement has to be stopped. And second thing is, attend the roundtable conference. But indirectly, he also said one more thing. Irwin agreed to release all the prisoners, but he does not want to release those prisoners who were convicted because of violence. Indirectly, he's hinting at Bhagat Singh, right? There was a chance Gandhi could have actually said, if you release Bhagat Singh, only then I will come. If he would have said yes, probably we would have still heard about lots about this great man called Bhagat Singh. But Gandhi did not take that choice. He let Bhagat Singh die. And Irwin also agreed to allow the make the salt, but only for personal consumption. He said Indians should not make salt for selling to other co-Indians. And right to make peaceful protest was also was also allowed. Then 1931, a special session was held in Karachi. People were very angry at Gandhi. So Gandhi was criticized a lot for not saving the life of Bhagat Singh. It was presided by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Gandhi-Irwin Pact was ratified, and because no opposition was given to this decision. Like civil disobedience movement was stopped officially for 1 year, and Gandhi was allowed permitted to attend the second roundtable conference. So this are the decisions that are being taken uh, in the Karachi session of 1931. So, along with this, there's two other things that we need to note here in Karachi session of 1931. One is the resolution for fundamental rights. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was very interested in bringing out certain fundamental rights. Earlier, it was Motilal Nehru who discussed about 19 fundamental rights in the Nehru report. Now it is Sardar Patel who spoke about fundamental rights, a resolution on fundamental rights that was brought in the 1931 of Karachi session. That is right to speech and expression, right to form association, right to equality, right against discrimination, and right for cultural rights, religious and cultural rights. Along with this resolution on fundamental rights, there is also a resolution on national economic program, which was drafted by Jawaharlal Nehru. And this is full of socialist ideas. Jawaharlal Nehru took a trip to Russia, and by the time he came back, he said, "I am a socialist of." Wait, there's an exact phrase that he had used, which we can Google up, which we can look up. So he said nationalization of all the key major industries, which means they should not be under the private players. All the important industries like steel or major industries, heavy industries, all should be under the control of government, and they can provide employment to the people. And there is also state monopoly over all the transport and communication should be there, like how BSNL and everything. All the important communication should be handed over to the state. Abolition of land tax, control of private money lending, and complete protection to the industrial worker should be given. Fixed working hours, basically industrial mm, protection, right? A decent wages should be given. Better working conditions should be given. So all these leftist ideas were being imposed on the Congress party, making it more socialist or radical. So these were the resolutions of National Economic Program, right? So what happened eventually is Gandhiji agreed to this. I mean, Gandhiji, since he was allowed by the Karachi session, he goes in September of 1931 for the second roundtable conference with Sarojini Naidu and Madan Mohan Valviya, right? Then the major debate on the second roundtable conference was on Simon Commission, of course, and the demand to grant separate electorate for Dalits and was demanded by Ambedkar, right? At this point, what happened is that Ambedkar, who attended all the roundtable conference, in the second roundtable conference, he asked, just like how we provided separate electorate to Muslims, why not provide separate electorate to Dalits? So Dalits wanted he want this indirectly like considering Dalits are separate from Hindus. So Gandhi does not want that to happen. So everyone were almost okay with it. In fact, Ramsay MacDonald was himself okay with it. All parties agreed to it, but Gandhi alone was not willing to agree to it, and he in fact quit. He walked out of the second roundtable conference and came back to India, and he started civil disobedience movement. But Arvind already said that Gandhi should not take up civil disobedience movement. This is against the law. So Gandhi was arrested and he put in jail, in the Yaravada prison, right? In Yaravada prison, he was put in jail now, and from there is where Gandhi had written some letters about how to carry out the ashram. Uh, there's a important book that was written about this, which you can look up. uh, Yaravada prison. I wish I can Google it up for you. Yaravada temple written by from Yaravada Mandir. Yeah, from Yaravada Mandir is a book that was written by Valji Govindji Desai. So you have to remember this name, Valji Govindji Desai. Valji Govindji Desai. So he's the person who has written from Yaravada Mandir. So basically, all the letter there were some letters that Gandhi was writing from Yaravada prison to Sabarmati Ashram about how the organization had to be carried in his absence. Mr. Valji Govindji Desai has compiled all these letters into a book and is published with the title From Yaravada Mandir. He called this as Mandir prison. It's not a prison anymore; it is a mandir, and Gandhiji is God. Then we have Ambedkar here. He was forced to so while Gandhiji was back to India in order to protest, meanwhile Ramsay MacDonald had passed this communal electorate that for Dalits. So in 1932 August, Ramsay MacDonald had announced this a communal award, and various issues and decisions were given, like 71 separate electorates were given to Dalits. So and then after Gandhi returned, he started to fast on to death. He said he'll die in the prison if this was not recalled. So uninterestedly, without any interest, Ambedkar had to forcibly go to the Pune Yarwada jail, and he had to discuss with Gandhi, and Gandhi was like, no, you have to call this back. That's how all the electorates for Dalits was called back, and then instead they came to an agreement which is called as Pune Pact between Gandhi and Ambedkar, saying that instead of separate electorates, let's give them reservations. They said separate reservation can be given instead of electorates, and Ambedkar was okay with it. Then there was third roundtable conference, which happened in November of 1932. Ambedkar was the only delegate to attend all the three roundtable conferences. So if we see the order or the chronology of the events, first roundtable conference happens, then Gandhi-Irwin Pact happens, and Karachi session happens. Then Karachi session, that's where they decide Gandhi has to go along with Sarojini Naidu, Madan Mohan Malviya to the second roundtable conference. And then communal award was given. Pune Pact, Gandhi comes back and protests. Yarwada jail, then Pune Pact happens, and Roundtable Conference 3 happens. Roundtable Conference 3 happens in November of 1932. And this is nothing very important about third Roundtable Conference except for the fact that there's one person who has attended all the three Roundtable Conferences, that is Ambedkar. Finally, we have to let's go on to the next section, that is important events that took place between 1934 to 1942. Provincial elections of 1930, there were 1937 provincial elections, right? Okay, 1937 provincial elections were happening as mandated by Government of India Act 1935, right? So Congress formed, which actually stopped participating in elections in the year 1920 in non-cooperation movement. Again, came back to active form of political elections, and they thought of taking part in elections again. Uh, Except there's an exception that within Congress there is Swaraj Party, which actually took part elections until 1925, until its fall, because of the mid responsibilists and also the death of C.R. Das. Right. Then 1937 Congress did a splendid performance. 1937 Rajagopalachari became the CM of Madras. Bihar, also Congress party headed by Sri Krishna Sinha. Central province, which is present-day Madhya Pradesh, it is NBV Khare. Assam, Bombay, Orissa, Uttar Pradesh, and Northwest Frontier province, which is Pakistan. All these places, Congress had won in 8 provinces, right? So out of 11 provinces, 8 were won by Congress, and 3 were won by others, and 0 by Muslim League. Muslim League, in fact, it tried to form a coalition in Bengal with some local party. In Sindh, it was United Sindh Party. In Punjab, it is Unionist Party, right? And Congress Party also formed a parliamentary subcommittee with Sardar Patel and Maulvi Abdul Kalam Azad and Rajendra Prasad. Some important work was done by Congress ministers after getting into the elections using this through this Act, 1937 Act. They're like all the reactionary laws were repealed, or they were suspended, and all the political prisoners were released, and there's a ban on journals. Whatever was there, it was also lifted, and some restrictions were imposed, like in toxic drinks. There was restrictions that were imposed, and many social legislations were passed. They allowed Dalits into temples and all that. So, but there's some negative theme about Congress is that apparently they were seen as very weak, and it is also dominated by higher upper caste of Hindus like V.V. Giri, Rajagopalachari, Tanguru, Prakasham Pantalu. They are like Brahmins in the higher posts. And there's a power struggle between the leaders. And the masses were turning against Congress party because of various movements were being led at this time by students, peasants, and trade unions against Congress party itself. What happens eventually, in although they did a very good performance in 1937, they had this show only for 2 years because World War II was on the brink, and in 1939 all the Congress ministers had to resign without consultation of the Congress party, because without Congress party's consultation, British have took a decision to put India in World War II, and all the Congress leaders were actually mm, disappointed, so they quit the Congress. They quit the legislatures, parliament, or yeah, the legislatures. What happens is then there's a Ramgarh session which happens. Then there is August offer. August offer was offered just in order to give a dominion status, to give put forth a situation of dominion status. Uh, so at that time, Conservative Party was in force, and he sends Cripps, who was actually in the Labour Party. He knows that this might not be a right time, this may not be successful also, but just to put down the opposition, he sends Cripps as a, I mean, Winston Churchill, who was the Conservative Party head, he sends a opposition member who's Cripps in order to um, talk or negotiate with Gandhi with an offer called August offer, in which he put forth a demand saying that if Congress party is willing to take part, if India is going to support in the World War II, then they'll be given self-rule, a dominion status. But by the time uh, Gandhi had criticized, saying that all this concept of dominion status and right. We'll get to that when we get to that. So this August offer about dominion status was also not working by that time. So what happened is Gandhi took up individual satyagraha in 1942, 1942, 19, between 1940 till 1942, right? This actually meant for freedom of press. And why this individual satyagraha? Why not mass satyagraha? Because October of 1940, British has imposed like huge restrictions against people, especially press, and also the people who are taking part in mass movements. So there were two objectives of these individual satyagraha. Individual satyagraha from 1940 till 1942. First demand is like demand of freedom or speech of demand of freedom of speech, and second demand is to preach against the participation in the war, right? Between 1940 to 1942, Congress Party appointed 25,000 satyagrahis without involving masses, like one person, right? So Gandhi has chosen Acharya Vinoba Bhave as the first satyagrahi, and like Nehru as the second, and like 25,000 people were actually convicted throughout, like their took part in this individual satyagrahas, and they all moved towards Delhi as a padayatra, like Delhi Chalo, Andolan. Women also took part in great numbers, and Srimati Sarala Devi was the first woman, and they gave an opportunity to British to peacefully accept Indian demands. And Congress Working Committee uh, then it to support the British. Then what happens is so right. Earlier, we discussed about August offer, which is nothing but to give a dominion status and expand the Viceroy's Executive Council in order to include more Indians, and to give sort of a constituent assembly where Indians can make their own constitution. This was the offer that was put forth during the Lindith Ghosh governorship time. This was not agreed upon by us, and that's why we took to this individual satyagraha. That was again after seeing our individual satyagraha. um, I think Cripps mission will follow. March of 1942, Cripps mission is going to follow, and then comes Quit India movement. Right, this is the last movement that was headed by Gandhi. Right, in 1942, it started in August and it ended in December. So this is the moment which paved way for our independence. It is also called as Bharat Chodo Andolan, or also Quit India movement. And in this moment, Gandhi asked all the government servants to declare allegiance to Congress, all the soldiers not to leave, but just not to shoot at our own people. And he asked all the princes to accept the sovereignty of the republic, of the people, right? And so, what is happening? What is the context of this Quit India movement at this point of time? Like in 1942, Japanese city, Japanese were like, so the Axis powers, Japanese were against Japanese Germany. All these were against the Allied powers, that is Britain. So they were trying to bomb not only directly, they are in fight with Britain, but also all the Britain colonies, which is India. So in India, in Vishakhapatnam, Japanese started bombing, and 1942, all their powerful war planes were actually flying across India. So we had this fear of Japanese aggression because we are just a colony of Britain, and why are they fighting against us? If they have to fight, they have to lead their fight directly on England. So another thing is the calculation that we had is internally, externally, Europe. I mean, Britain had a pressure that was happening from the Germany and Japan. If we give some internal pressure, probably that could be the right time to give a blow and snatch our independence. And the third factor is failure of Cripps mission. Cripps mission also took place after the individual satyagraha, where Winston Churchill, that is who was the leader of Conservative Party, sent his opposition leader, that is Labour Party, Stafford Cripps, in order to make a kind of conciliation or a kind of a agreement in order to convince Gandhi to obtain support, to obtain their support for to obtain India's support basically in the World War II, by giving these demands of dominion status. Already we what to say, we rejected the dominion status in August offer, but still they came back with the same August offer dominion status. They came back with this Cripps mission, which had the same demands of dominion status, same demand of Constituent Assembly. But Gandhi said this is now a post-dated check drawn on crashing bank. So, which means we are not going to accept all these Cripps mission. Uh, then what happened? We started with our Quit India movement. On 8th August 1942, Bombay, we officially launched our movement, and our mantra was do or die, karo ya maro. And 9th August, the very one day after that, all the Congress leaders were arrested. Gandhi was taken to Pune and he was placed in Aga Khan Palace. Um, right, and the movement was gone into the masses. So this is where it turned violent, and it is almost like Thane Jalado, Station Fordo. There were people who were burning all the police stations and all. So they took the sentence do or die literally, and historians actually call this moment as August Revolution. So three things we have to remember: August Declaration, August Offer, and August Revolution. August Declaration comes in the wake of Indian Home Rule movement when they promised to give Home Rule for us, and that's how 1919 Act was formed. Then August Offer was brought in place after August Offer was there before our individual satyagraha, like just to ask uh, Indian support in the World War II. Then we are talking about August Revolution, which is nothing but Quit India movement, right? 1942. Then Viceroy Linlith Goa at that time he remarked in a letter to Churchill that it is most dangerous since 1957. So he said that, and the greatest participation of women was seen in Quit India movement, and Gandhi refused to condemn the violence of people. Yeah, this is very important point because Gandhi usually condemns the violence wherever it happens, even if it is in some remote village of Gorakhpur, Chauri Chaura. There also he'll cancel the entire Indian movement. But still, at this time, he was very clever. So he made sure that he didn't make the same mistake that he did during the Quit India movement. I mean, the civilism, the non-cooperation movement. So he did not condemn to refuse. He did not condemn people for taking violence at this time. Martial law was not formally invoked. So martial law was not formally invoked on at this time in 1942. Right. Now we have few modern leaders that we have to discuss. Aruna Asaf Ali, she's also known as Grand Old Lady of India. She had a radical journal called Inqilabad. In fact, she's the first person to hoist a flag at Govalia Tank Maidan. Right. Then we talk about Usha Mehta. She had a secret radio called Congress Radio. She used to secretly transmit all the patriotic songs and programs. Then finally, British had suppressed the Quit India movement in 1942 of December, right? August is when we started, and December completely it was decimated. Like we stopped. Our Quit India movement had stopped. Now we talk about two important things like Azad Hind Fauj and then Royal Indian Navy's mutiny. After that, we finished with left wing in Congress, and we finally we close this session with a discussion on the partition of India. Right? We have just three more topics. If you can listen, if we can discuss, right? So, Azad Hind Fauj are Indian National Army. So, first, before this little background, we discussed already Ras Bihari Bose when revolutionary movement phase one was taking part in Delhi. There was a bombing on Hardinge, Hardinge one, which took place in which Sachin Sanyal was given was allowed to escape, was acquitted, and Ras Bihari Bose has escaped from there and he's gone on to Japan. There he formed an India's Independence League, Indian Independence League with some 16,000 men. So these men were given to Singapore. These men were given in Japan. They were stationed in Japan. Of course, Japan was against uh, Europe. I mean, the Britain at that time. Similarly, we have another important personality called Captain Mohan Singh. Captain Mohan Singh also was a person who was stationed in Singapore at that time. All the prisoners of war of who took part in the World War II on behalf of Britain were captured by the Axis forces and stationed in Singapore. One such person is Captain Mohan Singh. He said, "We also have the common enemy as Britain. So we have our men. So we already have INA's, sorry, Indian Independence League, Ras Bihari Bose men, and we also have Captain Mohan Singh's people. And under his leadership, he negotiated a deal in the sense." He formed all this together. He has materialized our Indian National Army that was working for us from outside in Singapore. What happened later is with the arrival of Subhash Chandra Bose into the scene. So in 1943, Subhash Chandra Bose he escaped from 1941. He escaped from the house arrest that he was in India, and he arrived at Germany in the name of Orlando Mozzata, and he requested Hitler to support for the Indian cause because Hitler was anyway against the Britain. So he thought he'd get a support from enemy of a friend, Arthashastra Kautilya. So, but Hitler recommended him to go to Japan. That is where he met with Captain Mohan Singh, and that's where he realized that we have a lot of human force or human blood that is there to support his cause. That's where we also have the people from Indian Independence League of Ras Bihari Bose and Indian National Army of Captain Mohan Singh. Before we get into what happened over there in Indian National Army, let's discuss a brief information about Subhash Chandra Bose. Subhash Chandra Bose was a native of Cuttack, Odisha. So in 1919, he was selected for Indian Civil Services. In the very next year, he quit the services because it is more working for the British government. He wanted to join the Congress for the cause of Indian freedom struggle. Both ideas were capitalist in ideology, and Gandhi. Both ideas were against capitalist. Gandhi was actually pro-capitalist, sort of pro-capitalist, but he gives a semblance or he gives an appearance. He puts up a show like he is working for the common man, but he has his friends, capitalist friends, with whom he wants to facilitate trade and all. Gandhiji came up with this concept called trusteeship concept, in which he says that all the capitalist people and zamindar should treat the workers as a they should represent themselves as a trustee for the workers. They should take care of them like kids or so. So Bose believed this. Bose believed this concept is not going to work. He believed in the struggle concept in which the workers should stand up for themselves and fight for their rights. Then what happened is this ideological differences also manifested in the form of their politics and also their leadership. In 1938, Haripura session in Gujarat, Gandhiji, uh, right, usually does not participate in the presidentship of INC. There was one session, of course, is an exemption, 1924 Belgaum session, where he was the president of Congress in order to settle the disputes between Swarajis and the Congress party. But other than that, Gandhiji usually suggests people to stand up for elections, and they will later on fight for the election. I mean, fight for the post of president, and then they subsequently take it up. But in Haripura session, um, first time against Gandhi's will, Subhash Chandra Bose was elected as the president. Second time, Gandhiji this time took it personally. This time, Gandhiji wanted to uh, appoint a person, wanted the person that he would nominate to be elected as the president. So he nominated Patabi Sitaramaya as contest as a contestant, and then we have again Subhash Chandra Bose running for presidentship in the next year. That is in Tripuri. Tripuri session. It's in Central Province. That is in Madhya Pradesh. Haripura session of Gujarat. Also there is Subhash Chandra Bose. Tripuri session of Madhya Pradesh. Also there's Subhash Chandra Bose. He had won both the times, and Gandhiji felt really devastated after this. He took that uh, defeat of Sitaravaya onto himself. But however, like in the very next year, Subhash Chandra Bose resigned from Congress and he founded his own party. He started his own Forward Bloc party. And in 1941, he escaped from India and he left to England. He left to Germany. This is where we have already discussed that in Germany he met with, uh, the revolutionary Hitler. Uh, so he said, under the name of Orlando Mozzata. This is very important information. Could be asked. Orlando Mozzata is the other name, pseudonym of which Indian leader that is going to be Subhash Chandra Bose. And Hitler directed him to Japan. That's where he discovered about this Azad Indian Independence League International Army, and then that's where he found he had materialized this Azad Hind Fauj, right? Azad Hind Fauj had two headquarters. One is in Singapore and one is in Rangoon, Myanmar. So he famously said at this place that um, he got 2 lakh soldiers with him, and he said, "Give me blood, and I will give you freedom." This is the famous line. This was said from Myanmar. It's not said from Singapore. It is said from Rangoon, that is in Myanmar. Right. So 4 regiments were formed by Subhash Chandra Bose. That is Gandhi Regiment, Nehru Regiment, Regiment, and Jhansi Regiment. Right. That is exclusively for women, which is led by Lakshmi Sehgal. So there's she was actually a doctor in Madras, and she was alive until very recent time. Lakshmi Sehgal was alive like until 2013 or so. So even her videos are viral on YouTube. If you want to check, go and check it. But after 2 minutes, that's when we are going to end this session. No, probably 5 minutes or probably 10 minutes. 1944, there's going to be Kohima expedition. So Bose, with all this enormous army of 2 lakhs, he carved out these 4 regiments or brigades: Gandhi, Nehru, Subhash, and Jhansi, and he started with a plan to enter India from Myanmar, like through the northeast. But this Kohima expedition to Nagaland, so this was very good on paper, but unfortunately it couldn't manifest in reality because it was a very heavy rainy season that time, and British with all their advanced artillery and with all their advanced equipment, they were easily able to defeat the Azad Hind Fauj. Leaders of this Kohima expedition, if we see, there is Shahnawaz Khan, PM Sehgal, who is husband of Lakshmi Sehgal, and there is Gurdayan Dillon, like each of them from different religions, right? Shahnawaz Khan, PM Dillon, and there is Shahnawaz Khan, PM Sehgal, and Gurdayal Dillon, right? Three leaders from three different communities. Then there are prisoners like so all these prisoners, around 60,000 prisoners, right? And all these three leaders were like put in Red Fort, and there were some trials that was going on, like whether to levy charges on their acts of Azad Hind Fauj. These trials were called as Red Fort trials or INA trials. So in order to defend them from the sedition or treason, all the Congress leaders who earlier gave up their profession during the non-cooperation movement have again took up to their profession, like to their law profession. That is Jawaharlal Nehru, Tej Bahadur Sapru, Gulabhai Desai, Aruna Asaf Ali, and Kailas Nath Khatchu. All these leaders who have given up their law profession have again took up their law profession in order to defend all these wonderful Azad Hind Fauj patriots in their INA trails. Next, we have what happened to Bose actually. Bose, some believe, as Subhash Chandra Bose was alive and he visited India. He visited even southern India, is what I've read somewhere. But what happened to Bose, as documented by as probably propagated by the Indian government, is that on 18th August of 1945, Bose died in a warplane um, in Bangkok when on his way from Bangkok to Tokyo in a crash at Formosa on Taiwan. Right. So, but his death remains as a mystery. Right. He was never awarded Bharat Ratna. Uh, RIN. So next we have Royal Indian Navy mutiny. It took place in February of 1946, and so there were three flags that RIN mutiny had, joined together for this mutiny. RIN mutiny, Royal Indian Navy people that were really inspired by the story of these Azad Hind Fauj. So they joined the flags of Indian National Congress, Muslim League, and Communist Party together, and they started boycotting for reasons like discrimination that they are facing in terms of food or the respect that they're getting for Indian workers and the British. And also there's like also they're against the Red Fort trails that were happening to the Azad Hind Fort prisoners, Azad Hind Fauj prisoners. And also there's wartime expansion that was being carried out by Britain. This also they were against. So with all these reasons, they started protesting between 18th February 1946 to 23rd of February 1946. That's like 5 days they started vehemently protesting. And it's not just one or two, but 20,000 soldiers, 20,000 ratings of Navy. They were rebelling. It's like a battle between the rebel ships and the British ships. So Talwar in warship of Britain. So Bukateshwar Dutt, he wrote "Quit India" on the walls of ship on the warship. BC Dutt. Sorry, it's not Bukateshwar Dutt. Yeah. On 18th February, so ratings working in Talwar ship, so they started to go on a hunger strike, and they slowly converted that hunger strike into a mutiny. And MS Khan was the leader of the mutiny. Very important name, MS Khan. And except Communist Party, all political parties oppose this RIN mutiny. Communist Party, of course, they like violence, but all the parties, including Jinnah, for some reason, Gandhi and Jinnah, both of them condemned this act, and they sent Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel as a mediator. And some sources say even Jinnah also went as mediator. But according to some of the mock tests, like Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel went as a mediator in order to convince the rebels to calm down, and that we are on the brink of our independence. We also have some left wing that was rising within the Congress. We'll discuss that before we discuss the partition of India. And I need to order my food. Rise of left wing within Congress party. So there's revolutionary forces, so we also have just like in France, the left and the right, the notion of left and right actually originated between the ideologies. In fact, according to the physical position of their sitting in the France, uh, representatives, all the autocratic people usually sat in the right part of the estate, and all the advanced or progressive thinkers sat on the left part, and that's how we actually associated our meaning to the sides, to the directions. And Communist Party of India, it was founded in 1920 with the help of Russia by M.N. Roy. Like he had a kind of a meeting with the Russian ideology at Tashkent in Uzbekistan. That's where he founded. He founded this Communist Party of India. And then the leaders, if we talk about the leaders, there are two important conspiracy cases that were held that these Communist Party leaders were associated with. One is in the year 1924, Kanpur Bolshevik conspiracy case. Another is 1929 Meerut conspiracy case. Kanpur Bolshevik conspiracy case, we already discussed this before. The names are like Muzaffar Ahmad, Aise Dange, Shakul Osman, and Narne Gupta. But on Meerut conspiracy case 1929, this except Narine Gupta, the rest of the rest of the people like Muzaffar Ahmad, Aise Dange, and Shakul Osman were associated with Meerut conspiracy case. Like if you talk about the leaders of first generation of Communist Party, there's Singarvelu of Madras, there is Muzaffar Ahmad, there is PC Joshi, there is Aise Dange, Shakul Osman, and Narine Gupta. It is. They also started a journal called Socialist, and it is the first leftist paper in India. We have to remember that it is not. It is just socialist. Indian Sociologist was again a paper that was started 1905, right? It is not. It is not sociologist. It is just socialist. That is by S.K. Verma. Indian Sociologist was by S.K. Verma, but this one is socialist by the Indian leftists, right? Communist Party. Communist Party actually split in the year 1964 as CPI and CPIM. CPI is associated with the USSR and CPIM is associated with China and Communist Party of India Marxist. Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, Communist Party leader by name Stalin. So Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose were mostly associated with left-wing ideologies. So Russia, Nehru made a trip to Russia, and where that's where he was influenced by this ideology. And by the time he returned before the Lahore session of Congress of 1929. He arrived with a statement: "I am a sociologist of the Republican." Uh, that's how he began his presidential speech in the 1929 Lahore session. He said he's a non-believer of the kings. Um, and that's how, for the Karachi session as well, Jawaharlal Nehru started this national economic program. All these ideas were taken up from the Russia, the social or the socialist ideas that were happening, that were churning out in Russia. Extreme form of that is communism. Right? When we speak of the Congress Socialist Party, apart from this is the Communist Party is outside of India, but within Congress Party there is another split that happened is within Congress Party. Earlier we saw that there is a Swaraj Party that split in at the time when Gandhi had called out the non-cooperation movement uh, because of Chauri Chaura incident. But now we are talking about another split that happened because of the leftist influence that is happening within the Congress Party, that is Congress Socialist Party. In 1934, Bombay, all the socialist leaders of the Congress Party termed a new party called Congress Socialist Party, and which is like an integral party within the Congress. So, Communist Party formed outside of Congress, 1920. Socialist Party formed within the Congress. Right. Few of the important leaders are like Acharya Narendra Dev, Jayaprakash Narayan, Ram Manohar Lohia, Achyut Patwardhan, and Yusuf Mehrauli and Minu Mansi. So, of these, Acharya Narendra Dev was more of Ahimsa Marg kind of guy. Like he was the founder president. Jayaprakash Narayan was general secretary, and the rest of them were like more into armed struggle. Ram Manohar Lohia, Achyut Patwardhan, Yusuf Mehrauli, Minu Mansi. So, Congress Socialist Party had two goals. One, freedom or obtaining their independence. Second is socialist society. They want all the major industrial industries and factories to be under the hands of government and not under the private players and capitalists. Right. That was the agenda of Congress Socialist Party. To have a more to elaborate it a bit. So all the nationalization of key industries, all the central control should be there over all the transport and communication. There should be abolition of zamindari system and distribution of land to the peasants. All the power should be transferred to the masses. All the resources should be equally distributed. Adult franchise, universal adult franchise is one of the objectives or agendas. Um there should not be discrimination on the basis of caste, religion, gender, etc. 1936 relations with so they also had relations with the Lanka Samaj Party of Ceylon. Congress Socialist Party had relations with Lanka Samaj Party of Sri Lanka. I need to charge. And 1942, they actively took part in the Quit India movement. In 1942, they actively took part in the Quit India movement. And right, in the post-independence, what happened is Congress Socialist Party finally they broke away from Congress. Until the independence, they were within the Congress, but post-independence they broke away, and they formed the Socialist Party of India under the leadership of Jayaprakash Narayan and Ram Manohar Lohia. Now we go on to the final part of this modern India one shot, which is actually broken into two shots. One was done day before yesterday, and one is being done now. The freedom, the partition of India. There are four different plans for the partition of India. Actually, five, if we consider Desi Liaquat plan also. We'll quickly see all these, and then we'll wind up the modern Indian history. Right. So, freedom and partition of India officially demanded for the freedom in 1929 Lahore session. In 1940, Muslim League Party declared. So 1940 is when the Muslim League Party declared for the partition of India in the Lahore session, and the two-nation resolution was demanded. Earlier in 1930, there's a Kashmiri Urdu poet called Muhammad Iqbal, who asked for like autonomous status under 370. He never demanded for a sovereign state of Pakistan, but he just asked for autonomous state for the Muslims. But later, 3 years later, there's another guy called Rahmat Ali Chowdhury in the Cambridge University. He came up with this concept of Pakistan, saying Punjab, Afghan, Kashmir, Sindh, Baluchistan. Together, he coined this word called Pakistan, and he asked for a sovereign state instead of autonomous state, sovereign state itself. And this actually materialized in the Lahore session in the 1940 as the demand for a separate country, or the partition to be taking place in the form of partition. And so between 1944 and 1947, there were four different formulas, or five if we consider the Desi Liaquat plan. Like CR formula in 1944, Desai Liaquat plan. Then that was followed by Wavell plan 1945, that also associated with Shimla Conference. And there is a Cabinet Mission plan, and there is Mountbatten plan 1947. Let's start with first plan, that is CR formula, Chakravarti Rajagopalachari formula. He's the senior leader of Congress. He left the Congress party in 1942 and he was against the Quit India movement. So CR Rajaji was against the Quit India movement, so therefore he quit Congress party. Later he founded something called Swatantra Party, but then again he came back to join the Congress party and the Muslim League. Right? It's almost like leaving a person and coming back to the person to join that person to someone else. Rajaji wanted to bring the Congress party and Muslim League together. And the provisions of this Rajaji's formula were that Congress party and Muslim League shall join together in their fight against the freedom, in the fight against British for the freedom. And after the transfer of power, that is to independent India, a boundary commission would be set up, and all the Muslim majority regions would be carved out as Pakistan. All the non-Muslim and Hindu majority regions would be settled as India. So the fate of those regions with towards the east and northwest and northeast regions would be decided by a plebiscite. Plebiscite here has to be differentiated from referendum, because plebiscite is not legally binding. Referendum is legally binding, right? So this is the proposal that he had. Gandhi and Jinnah talks were held in order to discuss the Rajaji's formula. Jinnah was very happy. He said, okay, we are all cool with this Rajaji formula. But he had only one demand. He said that all Muslims should participate in the plebiscite. Only Muslims should participate in the plebiscite. Hindus should not participate, because he knows that if Hindus are going to participate, they're in the majority. So they'll vote for staying with the Hindu majority regions, that is India. So Gandhiji did not like this. Therefore, CR formula has been a failure. Then come Desai Liaquat plan. In this, they said there should be equal representation of Hindus and Muslims in the Central Legislative Assembly. This is one of the proposals of that. Not very important. Desai Liaquat plan. 20% reservation too was discussed about Muslims. But we are talking about major partition plans, which covers CR formula, Wavell plan, Cabinet Mission plan, and Mountbatten plan. Since we have done CR formula, let's go to the next plan, that is Wavell plan. Wavell plan came in the year 1945, and the Viceroy Governor General was Wavell, and he came up with this plan that most of the power should be given or transferred to Indians. He said there are like 14 members in the Viceroy's Executive Council, right? So except the Defense Department. So basically, there's a portfolio system, just like how we have Education Minister, Defense Minister. That's how there are 14 different positions that is there in the Viceroy Executive Council. That's like almost like cabinet. He said, you take all the positions that you want, give the defense to British. We'll take care of the British, and rest of the positions you take and you split it among yourselves. Like the 13 positions, you split it like seven can be given to Hindus or the non-Muslims. 6 should be given to Muslims. And Governor General, the guy who's taking up the defense, has also the veto power. Veto power will be with the Governor General. 6 portfolios will be given to the Muslims and 7 to the non-Muslims. So, in order to discuss Wavell plan, Shimla Conference was called upon in June of 1945, which is also Shimla was also called as summer capital of India, and all these demands were accepted, except Jinnah had one more demand. He said that all the 6 members that were happening to to fill up the 6 positions in the cabinet or the Viceroy's Executive Council should be from his party. They should not be from Congress party. But Gandhi said Congress party is a secular party. We will not just represent Hindus. We'll even have Muslims. We'll have Christians. We'll have Parsis or any other people. So this point was not agreed upon by both the parties. that is Congress Party and the Muslim League. Therefore, that this also was a failure. Then we'll go on to the next one, that is Cabinet Mission Plan. Cabinet Mission Plans took place in the very same year, 1946. Sorry, the very next year, 1946. And this background of this is that PM Attlee, at this point, he's the person who was given independence, Atli, and he's also with the same name. There goes a director who is directing the next Shah Rukh Khan film right now, Atli. Uh, so there are three members that were there that are present in the cabinet ministers. Okay, there are three cabinet ministers of England who are also the members of this cabinet mission commission, cabinet mission plan. They were Sir Pethick Lawrence, Sir Stafford Cripps. This is the same person who came in 1940 as the Cripps mission, right? And also there is A.B. Alexander. The head of the chairman of this commission is like Sir Pethick Lawrence, and Attlee wanted to give powers in a peaceful and responsible manner. So for that, he said consensus should be drawn, and for this, they came up with a plan to give all the foreign affairs, defense, and communication to the union. Provinces will have the residuary powers, and also that it came up with a proposal that the unity of India shall be retained, citing the reasons that geographically, some of the Muslims are in the west and east area, so it would be geographically not feasible. Another thing, and there's a lot of human displacement that will be involved, and administrative anarchy will be there, and if Pakistan is on both the sides, and basically that's what happened. Bangladesh eventually came out. Um, then we also have truncated economy. There's like a lot of jute industries that are there in India, but all the jute lands would be going to Pakistan, and vice versa for cotton fields. Cotton fields are there in Pakistan. Uh, Cotton fields are there in India, and then the industries were in Pakistan. So that's how there's a truncated economy that is going to happen. So that is not that is not a feasible idea to actually separate to carve out separate regions for Pakistan. But this was actually responded uh, in a violent method by Muslim League. So Jinnah called for a direct action day on 16th August of 1946. That's where lots of Hindus were killed, and of course Muslims as well. So that's how the partition was brought purely on a communal basis. Like Jinnah had brought this upon. Another important provision of this cabinet mission plan is that All India Federation has to be created. 1935 All India Federation system, which was introduced. So, right, cabinet mission asked to change this as All India Federation to include all the princely states as well. So until now, we were discussing only about all the Hindu regions or Muslim majority regions, which were under the rule of the British, which were under basically that's a 50% area. But what about the rest of the 563 states, 563 princely provinces, right? These also have to be included under the federation, is what one of the provisions says. Then the third point is like constituent assembly has to be formed in order to draft the constitution of India. So this was also constituted in the year December 1946, and an interim government had to be set up at the center by the joining of the forces of Congress Party and Muslim League. So this was also eventually set up. So the elections happened in July, and the interim government was formed in September. And for the first time, an offer was made to Indians to form the government at the center. Right? This included like 9 ministers from Congress and 5 ministers from the Muslim League. Jawaharlal Nehru was the prime minister. He also held the external affairs, Commonwealth relations. Rajendra Prasad, food and agriculture. Sardar Baldev Singh, defense. John Muthaiya, industry, civil supplies. Sir Aruna Safali, railways and transport. C. Rajagopalachari, education and arts. Homi Baba, work, mines and power. Jagjeevan Rao, labor minister. There are 5 Muslim League ministers as well, like Liaquat Ali, finance minister. I. Chandigarh, commerce minister. Ghaznafar Ali Khan, health. Abdul Rab Minister, Commerce, and Jyotindranath Mandal uh, is a law minister, right? So later on, when Congress was formed, when Pakistan was formed, Jinnah had been their first Governor General of Pakistan. Uh, right now we have Mountbatten Plan, the final plan, and with this, I believe we are going to complete our modern Indian history. So, Mountbatten Plan of 1947. This is also known by different names like Balkan Plan. It's also called June 3rd plan. It's also called Dicky Bird plan. So the Prime Minister, Attlee, he sent Mountbatten, um, and he announced him as the last Governor General of India or last Viceroy of India. Um, and this Attlee made a declaration on the 20th of February 1947. He said that all the powers would be transferred to Indians in a responsible hands not later than June 1948, which means he essentially says this is going to be the deadline when the powers are going to be transferred to Indians. But this Mountbatten was very efficient. That's how it's like freedom come partition plan, because they wanted to have this was even before accepting this Mountbatten plan. Gandhi had a discussion with Jawaharlal Nehru and Patel, and they said they would accept this on a condition that not just India and Pakistan, a Muslim majority and Hindu majority regions of the British occupied India, but also the 563 princely states should also be split among the regions. So it's basically freedom come partition plan, and accordingly, the provisions were also enlisted. Like British and India would be divided into India and Union and Pakistan, and two constituent assemblies would be set up, and the independence of 563 states would be ruled out. Like they cannot be independent; they should be either going into India or going into Pakistan. And this is where Sardar Patel did a great job by getting all of them into India. And the partition of the states, like of Bengal and Punjab, would be decided of their respective legislature. Right, Bengal is to the east, Punjab is to the west. So both these alone should be decided based on their respective legislatures, on the basis of public opinion. Then a boundary commission will be formed. That is nothing but a Radcliffe Commission, which actually happened, and we did a very terrible job. And it did not demarcate India Pakistan boundary properly, especially in the Sir Creek region of Gujarat. Um, and there's a this after this partition was done, this Mountbatten Plan was approved as the Indian Independence Act of 1948 by the British Parliament of India, by the British Parliament, right? Uh, with that, we complete the entire modern Indian history. So this is like a two-parter. The first part dealt with advent of Europeans, British conquest of India, the British policies in India. And we spoke about different revolts like 1857 revolt. We also spoke about tribal revolts, caste revolts, peasant revolts. In this particular video, we started with social religious reform movements, and then we went on to the Indian national movement. In that, we saw how the in Indian National Congress sessions were taking place in every December. Then we saw the formation of moderates, their goals and their ways to achieve independence, and how the extremists came into picture, the Swaraj movement, the Indian Home Rule movement. And then there is the Indian revolutionaries, phase one, that is up to 1905, phase two, after 1925. Then we discussed about the Gandhian phase. We also saw different moments like non-cooperation movement, civil disobedience movement, and finally the Quit India movement. And finally, we saw Azad Hind Fauj, Royal Indian Navy, mutiny. And then finally, we completed the video with the discussion about the uh, partition. Right. With this, we complete all the modern Indian history. Uh, I hope this is of some use. This is solely made for my easy revision. If this is also useful to you, then I'll be really happy. And thank you for watching the video. And goodbye. And hope you have a great day, great evening, great night, and goodbye. Thank you. Bye.